Hello, everyone. Today is Hump Day. Wednesday is Hump Day. We have another special for you. We have Falonda, Jesse, and Eddie coming on again today. Let's add them in the order in which I just said it. Falonda. Hey, Falonda.
Hi.
We have Eddie. Hey, Eddie. And we have Jesse. Eddie
Was
ain't gonna say hi.
good. Everybody loves adding me last.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation we had last time, and I want to continue. Uh, and since Falonda had something she left off on, let's start with Falonda. We were
Okay.
I hope everybody is caught up with the last show that we all did, the After Five talk. So we're going to pick up from there because there was a question left on the floor that we would like to address. Falonda?
So one of the questions that was asked was about raising your child a Christian. Like, should you like force them to do it, or should you let them make that decision on their own? So for me, I am a choice person. Like, we come into Christ of our own free will. So you should be able to choose him as you wish. I believe in train up a child. So you should take them, introduce them, but it should be their salvation should be on their own. I've seen cases where people like take their kid to church and then throw them up at the altar and the kid repeat after me and then they have no clue what happens next.
Hmm.
And so for me, a choice is the best way to go.
I agree. I appreciate you addressing that. I believe that was Ty Strong's question from the last time. Hi, Bobby. Hi, Taisha. Good to see you guys. Yes, Ty Strong is, I don't see him in the comments just yet, but hopefully he got that answer. I agree. You have to bring up children in the way they should go so when they're grown, they won't depart. But I
Hmm.
believe it was more about the common sense, the common sense of it, as opposed to, oh, force them to be this way. And so when they get older, they won't be any other way. And I
Right.
don't think that that's what it interprets to. And that's why we all have to study to show ourselves approved, because otherwise you just following what somebody else wants. I believe that's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to know, what are some of the taboo issues that you wish were not taboo when you were trying to come into your marriage, but it was too taboo for you to talk about, so you didn't learn it before you got married in the church. You didn't learn it in the church, I should say. Eddie, you want to start with that question?
No, I'm gonna defer. having a technical issue, so I'm gonna defer
Okay,
for a moment.
Jesse. Eddie's a little busy over there.
So for me, interestingly enough, there really weren't any taboo topics. It was more so that uh it's not that it was taboo, it was more so that it wasn't talked about. And really the church I grew up in, I love them, I appreciate them. I'm glad some of these topics were not talked about. We had a lot for as many young people as we had in our church. We had a whole lot of old, two feet in the
Yeah.
grave kind of old type people. And I don't believe that I would be as free of a thinker as I am now had they decided to bring up some of these topics because I know how they think about them. Just in terms of knowing what they thought about other things allowed me to know exactly what they're thinking about this type of stuff. They had issue with Kurt Franklin's stomp. So I know good and well they're gonna have issue with doggy style and bondage and all kinds of other things like that. And they couldn't handle that. So I'm glad it wasn't addressed, but I don't think it was I don't think it was because it was taboo. I think it was more so that at that time, me coming up, it was more of a these are things that first your family should be talking about, and if your family's not talking about them, we're not going to talk about them until your family has talked about them.
Falonda, you decided that, oh, church wasn't for you. Was that one of the topics that you wish they would have addressed that would made it been a bit more for you at the time when you were young?
It was a multiple of things. Like I wish there was a talk about, blending families and
What do you
sex.
mean define blended family? You know
So
what age we in, so I'm just saying.
right. So for me going into the marriage with a child already, it was like I didn't want to say that it was judgment because nobody directly judged me, but by the time I got saved, I was already a mom.
Mm,
And it was like, okay, so now who's going to want you? Are you going to be with the child's father?
mm. Yeah, I agree.
Like
It's a lot of
nobody else
judgment.
would ever want to date me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I agree. It was a lot of judgment where it's supposed to be none. Hi, Jackie. Didn't want to not say hi, Jackie. Okay, so I in my perspective, I did see a lot of that, and it broke my heart because at the same time of people casting them away, especially in the Muslim community. People would cast those young ladies away, and now the church girls that were in there that were communicating with those people, they were no longer allowed to talk to them because it was taboo. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you can't talk to them. Oh, you still a friend. You're a friend of the enemy of the church, and it's like it made them feel some type of way. So I wish that wasn't taboo. It's not to say that everybody that saw it was going to follow it because they understand the level of acceptance, the social acceptance of that behavior. So I don't think that it was a matter of, oh, you can't talk to that person anymore and you shouldn't talk to that person anymore. So that's one of the things that I do wish was not taboo. And I think that that's why it seemed like they didn't want to talk about sex and marriage because a lot of young people, when they got into their feelings, they was like, oh, now, hey, Regina, now that they feel like we talking about it, now they're going to go out here and experiment with it. And then they're going to prematurely want to get married because they feeling their nature rise. And
Mm-hmm.
what they should have more so did was when you can't hold your nature any longer. That's how my pastor um, would talk to me. I told her, and she was the first person I ever told, I can't hold my nature anymore, and something's wrong. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
thought, that's the ideology we had. Something's wrong. I can't do this. What are y'all talking about? You gotta wait, you gotta wait, you gotta wait. Like, wait for what? I can't wait no longer. It's all these guys asking to marry me because I say no, I can't do anything before marriage. So they say, okay, then marry me. And I'm like, well, so it's not, I just wish it wasn't taboo, and I wish it wasn't to the point we had to cast out those young ladies who were experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Because in our age group, Falonda, you were experienced because you had endured that. You had went
Right.
through it. So I could have asked you a million questions and and learned, ate that good fruit so that I would know. What did Regina say? The church unfortunately messed up a lot of us. Yes, with that
Yeah.
misinformation because we didn't. Can you guys see these comments,
Yeah,
Falonda?
Yes,
we can
ma'am.
see the comments.
Mhm.
It's like that's a nail on the head right there. Because if we would have known better, we could have did better instead of
Yeah.
throwing those people out as if, oh well, they messed up.
Yeah. I really wish that there could have been like a conversation to be had. The one thing that I really hate is that so we preach abstinence, but don't nobody tell you what to do after you get horny. Like our bodies biologically don't know that there's a person that we are sexually attracted to, and now stuff is happening. What to do with that? And
Well,
like they
Philip,
like, look, you just need to pray it
there you
away.
go. They used to tell you just to
That's what
pray. Pray it
I
off. Pray it
absolutely
off.
cannot.
Go take a cold shower. Pick
Well,
up your
Right.
Bible. I even heard somebody say one time, "You need to read your Bible more." But there's sex in the Bible. So,
Right.
Song of Solomon.
so, so if somebody has sex in the Bible, you telling me that sex is not natural? I'm sorry, y'all had to defer earlier because we're having a little bit of lag, but I was trying to figure that out. But no,
Mhm.
I agree with everything that you all said. It's not taboo. Look, the
it felt
definition.
taboo when they say, oh, you can't talk about that, you can't be friends with the enemy. Like, when did they become the enemy?
Well,
Right.
that whole taboo definition is based on if you actually look at what taboo means, right? That means something that is prohibited, restricted, something that you shouldn't be doing. Well, if
Mhm.
that's not what the Bible tells me. The Bible, from what I read, the Bible is be fruitful and multiply.
Yes,
It
Lord.
right. So if that's the case, how am I under any kind of prohibition to not express myself physically? If the woman or the man in the relationship cannot express themselves physically, then how can they have a relationship under God or with God that in the way that God told them to be together, right? So it's a lie, but it was a good, quick thing to tell somebody to ignore it because you wanted to be a holy roller. But here's the taboo. The taboo was that the preacher, the bishop, the evangelist, the missionary, and everybody else was out there having free all sex with anybody and everybody while telling you, right, you got to pray. Well, you was praying, all right, P-R-E-Y, but you wasn't praying like you telling me to pray. And then you telling me to pray for something that is not of God, right? So, yeah, that's a lot to that. It's a lot to that.
And I agree with Sister Regina. Go ahead, Jesse.
I was gonna say, I think some of the issue as well is let's be honest. Like I said before, I think let's also consider some of the sources. Could you do for those of us who raised in church? Can you really did you want the church mother or the church elder or deacon at 80-something years old telling you about sex at 16, 17? So sometimes it's also a matter of we think that is something that they feel like is taboo. They're trying to figure out the best way to avoid the conversation so that they don't have to have it with you because they're not comfortable having a conversation with a 60. Most of us parents don't want to have the conversation with our kids because it's an uncomfortable conversation. Now imagine trying to have it as an older person with someone else's kid and then try to instruct them the biblical way, especially not recognizing or knowing what each person's parent or guardian is teaching in their home concerning these things. I got a few years ago kind of paralleling. It's not the same issue, but it's paralleling. A few years ago, I almost got cussed out by a parent because I told a class I was teaching there was no such thing as Santa Claus. But wait a second, I thought we all could agree that as believers, that's not something we believe in. And when I said it, the parent was like, "Well, listen, that in my house, I let them have their little imagination and whatnot." And so imagine how much greater of an issue it would be. Now I'm teaching your child about sex, and you taught them something different than what it is that I'm expressing biblically. The second problem is we also have to kind of realize that we're dealing with broken people and asking broken people to make whole people. So we have broken people in the church who have been dealing with the same kind of quote unquote oppression and with sexual natures and things like that we experience. And we're asking these broken people to teach us whole stuff that they haven't learned yet.
But a lot of that brokenness derived from a lot of people hiding in the closet about these topics because is not your nature isn't it's not a matter of, oh well, the truth is the truth because it's true, not because somebody said it or brought it to your attention. So when these children were encountering these issues, that it was like, okay, they don't know what to do with it, so they can't tell their mother. They can't tell their father. They can't tell the preacher now because now the preacher done told them we can't talk about this. And it's like kids are smart enough to understand when you are diverting the answer, when you are saying I'm not going to answer this, or you throwing the ball in somebody else's court with some lame excuses. So a lot of times the brokenness can be resolved by not perpetuating that broken system. And I hate to use that word, but it's a broken system.
It's a system. Listen, I'm gonna give historical context because that's what I always do. All right. So let's look at this. So we're talking about the church, but it's not just the church, right? If you were, there are questions out here in the country that we never really ask because what we try to do in there is people think outside the box. The reason why sex education was taught in the American schools and why it gained so much of a push after the 1960s was because of the rise in abortion, the rise in sexually transmitted diseases, the fact that people did not understand sex as a physical thing, and we were telling ourselves that it was okay because they'll get taught it in the school, at home. They'll get taught it here. So the teachers had to start teaching it because I'm gonna be very, very to the point. During the hippie revolution, when people were rolling in mud and dirt and filth and then having sex, there were all types of staph infections and a
Mhm.
lot of things that were
Mm-hmm.
going on. And so the church is one aspect that failed to help people to understand, right? Understand you had some forms of Christianity, Catholicism telling folks don't use birth control, don't do this,
Yeah.
don't do that, right? And all of these things came to a head because the kids who are born out of these situations are in society. Those are the friends that you saw in school. Those are the people who had permanent physical issues based on the fact of bad sexual choices that their parents made. So
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
the historical part of that is if the church, if organizations, mentor groups, if you're not talking about sex because you think that it's taboo with your religion, what you're really doing is opening up the door for children and your children to interact with people who could hurt them or them themselves who will be hurt. We have to face that fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I
I think that I'm sorry.
go
I
ahead.
think that
No.
we as the body, we do people like such a disservice with that. I found that like when we were back doing youth ministry, when we first started in ministry, and a lot of the young people felt more comfortable coming to talk to us than their own parent. I can remember a young man who came like, "Hey, Miss Falonda, can I really talk to you about something?" And like please don't judge me. And I'm like, you can talk to me about anything. That's who I am. And then he was like, I think my girlfriend might be pregnant, and I know I'm not supposed to be having sex. And I'm like, look, the deed is done now. You already started having sex, and look, let me just be honest with you, it's hard to turn it off. You got to do some things. It takes practice. As much practice it's hard took you to get used to having sex, it takes just that much practice to not having sex.
Mm-hmm.
So now
Mm-hmm.
that we here and there's a possibility she gets pregnant, I was like, what are you going to do with it now? Like, seriously though, like, do you feel like that this is the person you could see yourself spending the rest of your, can you grow old with them? Can you raise children with them? Like, we always think about the act of the sex, but all of the stuff that comes afterward. If you get a disease, can you stick with that? Because now, look, if there's a pregnancy scare, that means you had unprotected sex. When the last time you've been to a clinic? When the last time you
Mhm.
had the conversation with her? Let's have the uncomfortable conversation. When the last time she been checked out?
Mm-hmm.
And I think
STDs are real.
Mm-hmm.
that portion is very key in terms of we just as in general, but especially the church, we shy away from uncomfortable conversations, no matter what the conversation.
Mhm.
If we get that little in the pit of our stomach, we run away from that conversation. And because sex is one of those behind the scenes, closed door type deals, we really want to run from it because it's not comfortable to have a conversation about sex. Listen, we don't really have conversation about sex with the person we having sex with.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
how
that's true.
uncomfortable the conversation of sex is.
That's
If
true.
if I'm having sex with you, why can't I talk about sex with you? So now you want me to have a conversation about sex with someone I'm never having sex with and help teach them. This is why I say it's kind of it, it's a multi-layered issue, more so than just, hey, we need to talk about it. It's getting the right people to talk about it, getting the right people to talk about it the right way, getting not just the right information, but since we're talking about believers, coupling the right natural information with the right spiritual
It's
information,
true.
that we also can come to a consensus of, here is what we are teaching. So
Mhm.
yes, sex is outside of marriage, sex is a sin. However, it is highly likely, especially in this day and age, you ain't gonna make it to the altar before you have sex. So now let's also deal, aside from dealing with abstinence, let's deal with the issue of being smart and intelligent with how you deal with sex. But before we even can deal with that, let's also deal with the issue of, wait a second, do you understand how to choose a partner?
Yeah.
Because you're just choosing somebody for the sake of choosing somebody. Like Falana said, now you messed around and had raw sex with somebody, and now you're pregnant, and now now you've gotten someone pregnant, or you've been pregnant by somebody who you really don't even like, and now you're tied together for 18 to 21 years minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things they should tell us when they're not talking about sex. It's a drug. Like Falonda
Yeah,
said,
it
it's hard to
is.
turn it
Lord.
off.
Yeah, it is.
It's a drug. You can't just turn that off. It's like, okay, now my nose is open. I have to have this. It's like candy. You can't just give a child some candy and then show them that this is where the bag of candy is, but you can't have anymore. Like, wait, what? Now I'm gonna get it by any means necessary, as Malcolm X
Right.
say.
I don't think it's necessary. I agree it's drug-ish. I don't necessarily say that it's a drug, and here's why I say that.
I guess I
For
done told on myself too much then.
Well, no. I say it like this because for as many people that are running around having single sex, you hear so many married couples talking about, oh, now we're not having sex.
Yeah.
That's true.
Where did this addiction drug get the turnoff switch from? Oh, let's do it to
Let me tell you what
later.
happened. That's that mental that I'm talking about. Because a lot of guys, in the last show that I did on Monday, I said a lot of guys are turning to pills because, even young guys, because they can't fully get to where they need to be. They giving like 60% chub when they should be giving 100%. It's that mentality. So your mentality is mixed up, and now you're thinking too much about different things to the point where you can't focus on what this needs to be. Now it does, like Falonda said, it takes some concentration, some focus, and it takes some work. Just as much work as you put in it when you're a virgin and you just not starting at it to master it. It takes that same amount of work and energy to keep being the doctor of, whatever that technique is that you have. Whereas I say we need to.
I agree with that comment right there.
Yeah.
Meeting people where they are at is
And, it's absolutely. I won't cut you out, but I'm gonna push back on that, Tina, and I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna push back on that. We are living in a pharmaceutical society right now.
mm-hmm,
Rather you believe it, rather you know it or not. Even in the water you drink, everything that you do, there's some chemical, something that is in there that wasn't in there 50 to 100 years ago. We don't know what the effect of a lot of these chemicals, because they don't know, have on
Mm-hmm.
your body. So people had issues in having sex back in 1857, back in 1664, right?
mm-hmm.
But the problem is that we have a society which people are getting into a peer group and group think to think that, because let's be honest, the first thing anybody says is go pop a Viagra. And for the better
Mm-hmm.
part of 20 years now, people have been screaming Viagra. Comedians joke about it. People talk about it on late night TV and sitcoms. And so kids who grow up and watch this think to themselves,
That's
right,
the norm. Hmm.
that the only way I can get where I need to go is to drop this pill, drop this substance, do whatever they're telling me. People were taking, was it melatonin, to go to sleep. They were
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
giving their kids melatonin, cough drop medication, and anything to knock the kid out, never thinking about the fact of how that's going to play into the biology of, of the child.
Mm-hmm.
And because I am an advocate of churches, because that's what we're talking about, churches need to start teaching these things to the, because people go to church, some people go to church 3 times a week, and you never talk about these things. Sister
Mm-hmm.
such and such is doping her kids to death, right? It's full Munchausen syndrome going over her house, but she come to church every day and she praying until her child becomes 18, starts sniffing and doing whatever, and you wonder how he get on drugs like that. He
Hmm.
been drugged all his life.
A conditioning. Hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
So these things have to be talked about. And we need, so getting back to the whole thing with the sex drugs, it's a whole market for that. It's $1 billion market. That ain't gonna go away. But you can make your children and your people in your life smarter about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eat a healthier diet, drop some weight. Majority of the reason why men have problems is not because of the mental, it's your health.
physical, that's right.
Yeah.
It's your health. What are you eating? What are you not eating? How much weight? I'm gonna give you another very, very huge thing. Men out there who are watching this, who are gonna be uncomfortable, for every 30 pounds that you put on, you
Uh-oh.
lose inches off of your penis.
Yep.
Facts.
I know it to be true.
That's the fact, right? So if you feel like you're not pleasing your woman or you're not doing what you need to do, it is because what are you doing? Are you taking care of yourself? Not when I say that, I'm speaking to myself. Every man should be speaking to himself.
Now,
What am I
Falonda, is
doing?
that the same with women?
Actually, no, but we have a hormone. Like you have to realize as women, and here's another conversation that doesn't happen until it's already too late. The older we get, the less the less
Lubrication.
wet you get, the less
Mm-hmm.
natural lubricant you have, hormone imbalances,
Mm.
having babies, throw your hormones off, throw your pH levels off. Nobody talks about these kinds of stuff. So for as much weight that we gain, that throws our hormones off. Have a cycle, that throws your, have PCOS, that throws your cycle off.
And what's PCOS?
Polycystic ovary syndrome.
Yes, I
So
know a
you'll
lot of
find
people
like
with
people be out there like they'll assume you see a girl and she may be bigger than the norm, and you be like, oh, well, she's just lazy and don't exercise. You don't know that that weight gain could be from polycystic ovary syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
and some
And so
people
we just
have that
assume she just fat.
endometriosis. Some people have
Right. Oh,
endometriosis, and that causes a problem.
and I believe it's like 1 in every 3 African American women suffer from endometriosis and fibroids.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
So now you want, my uterus is doing whatever it wants to do, and now I just need to
mhm,
be prepared to give it up and spread it and everything be prepared. That ain't how that happened.
mm.
Because you don't know. And then you get to the doctor, and I found myself to be guilty of this. Let me just be honest. I switched gynecologists recently. I went to the doctor and I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, I really want to talk about, I'm getting older and I've noticed a difference. But at the same time, like, do I say something to her? And I really want to, but do I feel comfortable? Is this a conversation? I mean, she already down there in there.
Mm.
I'm like, hey, look, some stuff ain't doing what it's used to do. What can I do about this?
And it is difficult for us to change doctors, female gynecologists, because being in the military, every time we relocated, I had to change my doctor. And
Yeah.
and then it's like the doctors, they all have different spirits. A lot of people say you have to have sex in order to have those sexual ties. But every time a woman, for me, this is my experience, every time I will open myself up in any format, I just open myself up to feel that person in different ways that okay in a way that's like words that don't have to be said, like I'm picking up on her sadness, I'm picking up on her uncomfortable uh position, I'm picking up on the fact that she's into same sex and she's enjoying it just a little bit too much and it's making me uncomfortable, or it's a man and he's like, oh wow, are you married? And that's a very uncomfortable position to be in. And you and this, it's like, and then we don't have nobody that we can talk to because it's like, who are you gonna run to?
Right.
And
Well,
I,
that's disturbing.
I
Falonda.
think Taisha, I hope I said it right. Taisha has a very good point. Over the course of time, and I swear somebody
Mm-hmm.
needs to tell these young dudes. I was
Yes.
in this I was listening to this podcast and this older women who date younger men, and this one woman was talking about this 21-year-old dude that she's dating, and she's in her 30s, and how much like he'll go to the gas station and buy a pill in a heartbeat. And I'm like, dude, you too young for that. You are
show no.
shutting down the body's natural. This is, you are in the prime, dude. 18 to 25. You need to be out. Your body naturally knows what to do. Now you done polluted it with all these drugs, and you will build a memory. Your body will build a memory.
There
So
you go.
now I can't get it up because my body was like, I'm waiting on the pill. Where's the chemicals
Mm-hmm.
to make that happen instead of letting blood flow be blood flow?
And if they would just focus on the problem, a lot. There was this young man, and he said that he was having he said problems in the bedroom, and he couldn't perform. And I talked to him like, what's going on? It's like he was like, well, it's a lot going on at work. and I'm getting hollered at constantly at work, and then there's this and that, and then the kids, and then my wife want me to do this, and it's like, where does it end? And then now he's expected to perform, and nobody wants to accept 60% chub, so they take a pill because they're saying at that young age they shouldn't be 60% chub, they should be 100%. But if we were to be more accepting of, okay, we need to work on your mental so we can get you mentally there. A lot of women, they feel like only the woman is supposed to be there mentally. You got to get the woman mentally ready,
I'm gonna
and you
tell
have to
you, Tina,
stroke her ego
the
and
man is
stuff.
there. The man is there mentally, right?
Sure enough.
He is there mentally
Mhm.
because that's the way men are designed. I'm just gonna tell you from a man's perspective. He's there
Facts.
mentally. The problem is this. We talked about this the other night. We're talking about bodybuilders. What is happening, and I'm gonna go back to it again, is that people are not. I don't know if people know this, but there is a huge slew of bodybuilders, pumped dudes dying left and right, all over the world, and these world-class competitors. And I was watching a brother who was talking about why. There was a man back in the day called Jack LaLanne, bodybuilt for decades, died at 95 years old. Jack LaLanne was not only a bodybuilder, but he was a dude who took care of his health. He ate right. He made sure that he took care of himself and what he ate and what he brought into his body and what he exposed his body to. What has happened is we are in a society of everybody want to look stacked, 6-pack, 9-pack, 15-pack, look all tough and look good, but they don't go to the doctor. So what they're doing is they're eating their chickens, their chicken breasts 17 times a day. They eating all this fat. They putting all this stuff in there. Then they go work out because we've told ourselves in school and through society, that as long as they working out, that's all good. Then they go in and they get their blood pressure checked, and you got the blood pressure of a 70-year-old man because you done put all of this fat in your body. You already have what is called an athlete's heart, which means your heart is swollen a little bit. It's engorged. So now they get you to a point where they can't help you because after decades and decades of doing this to your body, there is no way for the body, like Falonda said, it has conditioned itself to accept this. This is why pro wrestlers, bodybuilders, big dudes drop dead from cardiac arrest. And folks going, that dude was in perfect health.
Yeah,
No,
but like
he was not.
Jackie said, he didn't take steroids. Steroids became a thing though.
And didn't have to take, you don't have to take steroids.
Mhm.
You
Don't
can be
have to.
completely natural and you can be dying in a pristine body. Ask Bruce Lee, right? You look at these folks who had these amazing bodies dead early because you're burning out. Your heart is a muscle. It's the engine, and you're burning it out. All that, yeah, great. You look great. But then when you go ready to go in the bedroom, you wonder, why can't I get no blood to flow to my penis? I'm going to be real honest with y'all tonight. But you can't get no blood to flow to your penis because you got all the blood up here. Right? And the body is like, dude, what are you doing? Right? And so, and even with steroids, it's a known fact that steroids, after a while, they're going to give you shrinkage. You're going to shrink a little bit. You got to come off of that stuff. Right? So if we're not educating young men in sports, basketball, football, because we encourage them to do these things, we encourage them to be, you got to put on weight. You want to play football. We encourage them to be these sports iconic kids, but we don't think about what that's going to do to their life. We don't think about those guys that retire out of basketball, baseball, football, name of sport, and dead within 5 years.
And this is why I said earlier that it's more of a multi-layered totality conversation than what we'd like to think of it as. You can't talk sex without talking all of these other issues. And now you couple all of that, and I'm gonna speak as a pastor for a second because I've had this come at me. So you couple all of that, right? That has to be talked about. Mental health, physical health, physiology, anatomy. Then you're also talking sex in itself and all those other things that go into it. And now you want me as a pastor to teach it to, here's the real key as well, to a bunch of people who only want me to specialize in the Bible anyway. It becomes so multi-layered that it becomes hard. So what the church has done in error, I get it's in error, but what the church has done is said, okay, look, mechanics, only deal with cars and automobiles and mechanic stuff. Electricians only deal in circuitry. Plumbers only deal in plumbing. So since I'm a preacher, I'm only going to deal in Bible, and I'm not going to deal with the rest of the life because y'all don't want to hear that. And so, and what that has done is it's caused over time, we now have an ignorant generation and really ignorant generations that are now trying to come up and substitute learning that someone should have taught them, but we have a bunch of people who don't know and won't do the research. It's a combination of a ton of different stuff. So it's not just the church. It's like Eddie said, it's society as a whole. This is a situation that you deal with even if you ain't in church. You got misinformation about sex and about health and about mental health and all this. It's pervasive. Period.
And the world mimics the church, and that's why in a lot of businesses we're seeing an increase in industrial organizational psychologists like me. What we do is we get the client and we see what we evaluate the client and we see what it is that client needs, and then we resource out whatever it is they need. For example, somebody who's looking for a good preacher in whatever it is that you specialize in, Jesse, or a person who specializes in the testimony that Falonda has. And that one person is supposed to find whomever it is and grab all of those different people, somebody who knows history the way Eddie knows it. That's what we're all lacking. Somebody, a source who can say, okay, this is what I don't know. For example, Jesse, you'll be like, well, I don't know the answer to that question. Let me reach out, see who I can get. You will basically, it's like turning to a library. And the librarian is supposed to get all of your information that you're looking for and then say, point you in the right direction for everything that you need. And everybody needs that. A lot of these organizations are learning to utilize industrial organizational psychologists in this manner, and that's what's causing their business platform to bloom, prosper, or whatever you want to call it, and cause the longevity and the globalization that techniques that's required for them to last for generations. But a lot of the churches, they don't have that because they're so busy being compartmentalized and say, well, we don't do that here. Oh, we don't do that here.
It's absolutely that, but I promise you, let the average pastor of the average church or average minister, leader, whatever, of the average church tell a member, I don't know, and watch the reaction that you get. That's something to hear. I don't know from leadership. That's something that has to be conditioned. And it takes a leader who is outside of the box of church itself to be able to get there. The first time I told my folk, I don't know. Let me either get back to you or let me point you to somebody I know knows the answer or should know the answer. Folk flipped because it's not something we're used to hearing. But I told my folk, I would rather you get the answer, the right answer. I don't care who it comes from. I would rather you get the right answer than sit in ignorance, and that ignorance cause you to fall. We have created an atmosphere, leaders and members alike. It's not just on the members, leaders and members alike. In the church world, we've created an environment that leaders have to know everything. And we've created an environment that the members are not required to know anything. There's a message that I heard years ago when I was first coming up. My home pastor used to always say, everything you need is supposed to be in the house, talk about in the church house. So that doesn't mean I'm supposed to know everything as the pastor. That means I'm supposed to have everything in the house. So if I don't know it, well, go talk to brother so-and-so because they got that information. Go talk to sister so-and-so because they know the information. We have created an environment where that's no longer the case. We as members don't study the word or the world. We don't study, we don't research, we don't talk, we don't listen, and it's whatever the pastor. I have heard more Christians in the last 15 years make my pastor says statement as opposed to the Bible says or what Jesus says statement than I care to count. And that has also caused it to be so difficult to be able to create that kind of environment, that kind of network you have. The other portion of it is, then I'll shut up, is that also you have these leeches. So now I send you to another pastor to help. that pastor is going to try and steal you and take you as a member, as opposed to just giving you the help. Or I bring my church and try to deal with this pastor. All of a sudden now they want me underneath their fellowship, and I got to pay all these dues and all this money that I ain't got, just to be
Mm-hmm.
able to filtrate information that we should be willing to share openly.
Mm.
It's a very, very hard atmosphere that we have created. And again, I'm not saying that it's not wrong. It's absolutely wrong, but it takes a whole lot more to break it down than just saying, "Hey, let's have the conversation," because we're talking about a lot of layers that have to be destroyed in order for it to be done successfully.
Well,
I
it's not
think
necessarily that you destroy it; it's that you remake it because you don't want to. It's a foundation. You just got to fix it,
You know,
Falonda.
go ahead, Philonda. I'll let you go.
I think Taisha has a very good point. Like when
Mm-hmm.
she said, "What leaders are they talking to?" The majority of churches now aren't even personable anymore.
Now that's
Like we
another
have,
problem. That's
Well, that
true.
like,
that's true.
and I understand what had to happen, needed to happen during the pandemic, and people still needed the word, and people still needed the fellowship, people still needed God. I understood that. But we have gone so far as the body of Christ into technology that we don't even know how to interact with one another anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Philonda, I agree.
Like I,
I agree. I agree.
so so now that the churches are starting to open back up and we're trying to get back to the norm or the new norm, whatever they want to call it. Like now we're getting out there and like I don't know how to approach you because a lot of times, yeah, there are people who seem unapproachable. I had a member tell me recently, she was like, when I first met you, I felt like, and let me just be honest with you, because you were the first lady, that you were just gonna judge me. And I'm like, and I was like, let me be honest with you. I felt the vibe. I read the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it wasn't that I was going to judge you. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to just be yourself and come to me because you want to. I'm not going to force myself in. First of all, First Lady is not a biblical title. I
Thank you.
was like, I hate that thing. It's not biblical. And I'm not like everyone else. I have seen some things. Being with this man and going to some churches, I have seen some things. I was like, don't get me wrong. I don't want to go near half of these first ladies. It'd be some crazy stuff coming out of their mouth. I was like, I completely understand. I was like, but it takes that for you just being you and allowing people, meeting people where they are at. Like, if you don't know, I'm not going to judge you. We all got to pass. And if you don't got to pass, praise God.
I agree with Taisha. I was going to say that. I agree with Philonda. I agree with both of y'all. We are getting into technology, right? It's a good and a bad thing, as any automation is going to be. But what is also, I'm going to try to encompass everything with what y'all said. Last time we were on, I told everybody that they should get this book called The Black Church and the African American Experience. Not very much read. Most people probably, you wouldn't be able to find it in most bookstores. You can go get it on Amazon. And the reason why I always push that book is because it's one of the few studies that was done about the Black church coming out of the civil rights movement into where we are right now, and to look at it. And one of the things that was talked about was the idea of the priestly, right, and the prophetic. In other words, and that's the labels they gave. But the fact of the matter is how the Black church used to be a priestly thing where the church worked to help the community as well as taught them about how to live a faithful life.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have gotten into the individual of the church, the centerpiece, the person that wants to be at everybody looking at. And then that becomes a problem because we expect a one source stove-piped answer to everything.
That's
and
right.
we no longer open ourselves up to the idea that there are people who have life experiences in your church who can minister and talk to you about things because they've lived through it.
And supposed to.
But they don't do it anymore because everybody wants to take we gonna leave it on pastor. We gonna let pastor answer that question. And I've actually heard people say this. Pastor will answer that question. But you have a life too. You got a testimony too. You get up there and sing that song, I got a testimony. But when somebody come ask you, hey, what did you go through? Oh, you go ask Pastor about that. I don't want to talk about that. But you just got up here and talked about it. The testimony was supposed to be for you to make known his deeds, what God did for you, how he got you through. And yet, we got a lot of folks up here, like Jesse just said, will throw the pastor down the pit because pastor didn't know. Nobody know. Guess what? Somebody do know. But you're not willing to do that. On the technology part, and I'm going to shut up. The technology part of it is this. We have a lot of introverted people out here who never were comfortable sitting in that house of worship with you. They never were comfortable, but they did it because they wanted to be right by God. That's how they felt. So now they can get on their computer, listen to you preach, get that word, right? And then go, man, and send you a message or hear something from you. I saw Jesse did it last time we were on, and Falonda did it today. Answering the question of the people who have concerns. I'm living through this. That's all I want to know. How did you get through it? How did you live through it? Because that gives me the reason to get up in the morning, not live in my depression, not live in my room with my agoraphoria where I can't come out of my house, right? So the church has the ability, we have the ability to reach people in a way we never have. Technology has a negative and a positive. But if we have to push the positive and do what we need to do to reach these people.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions I want to hit before we, got to close out this episode. So one of them is, some people wonder, how is it that African American people with low income keep making babies while sex is stress relieving? Who needs stress management more than African American people in low income? Like everybody looking at African Americans like, y'all can't afford to live, but y'all keep making these babies. But they putting so much pressure on us, and this is the only way that we can fix that mental stress that we're having and relieve that mental stress because the oxytocin that's being released.
Can I inject one thing? Can I inject one thing in that real quick?
Go ahead.
Who said that? Because let me tell you something. The white folks that lay down with black people and have black babies, them babies come out black, but didn't mean they came from only black parents. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Right.
I was gonna say, I was gonna ask that person, in jest but seriously at the same time, have they ever had sex? Because sex is wonderful. Sex is not only is sex a great stress reliever, you get some good sex, it'll uplift your mood, it'll uplift your mental. You feel like you can go out there as a black man, as a black woman, and face this crazy world and dodge bullets and leap walls and the whole nine. This is why we keep doing it, and raw sex feels even better. So that's where all
the orgasm works way better than melatonin. And no side effects.
No, that's true. That's a biological.
So you prescribing an orgasm instead of melatonin.
Yeah, right. Don't just be having sex, because there's a difference in between just having sex and going through the motions and the actual orgasm. Yeah. Those are two separate things. And if you go ahead and get your orgasm, you don't need no chamomile tea, and you don't need no melatonin. You're going to sleep.
Yeah, I mean,
so how do you figure out what you lack to avoid seeking it when you're married? How do you avoid going out and like having a wandering eye because you now in the relationship with somebody that you want to marry, but you're like, ooh, this relationship is lacking something. How do you prevent yourself from going out there and?
I don't understand that question, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna slow down.
Yeah, one more
time.
How
do you figure out what you lack to avoid seeking it outside of your marriage or your relationship before you get married, or did you figure it out before you look for things outside of your marriage?
I think that has to really start with you first, because a lot of people say that I lack something, and then you ask them what do they lack, and they can't really describe it. And so once you have that, because people forget one of the vital parts of having a successful relationship is communication. If I can't tell you successfully communicate to my partner what I'm missing, then of course you can never give it to me. I can't tell you what I'm looking for. But I'm looking for what I used to feel like when we first got together. What was that? How did you get there? Did I do something? Did I take you someplace? Did I touch you? Did I listen? Something. Tell me something. You can't just tell me that feeling. What was that feeling, and what cause that feeling. And that's totally different. And I think that because we don't start with the communication, if you have a lack, you should be able to. You need to reevaluate the relationship you in if you don't have the ability to communicate with someone that there is a lack. It has to start with that. And then once you express the lack, so say the lack is, hey, in the beginning of the relationship, we was having sex 4 or 5 times a day. But now we done got to a place, and I know we done had kids, we got bills to pay, we got stuff to do, that we hadn't had sex in the past 2 months. I need some sex. Well, then what do we do about it? Can we change the schedule? I read this study once where this guy was seeing, it was like probably something that y'all do for y'all master's program, Tina. But he was like trying to figure out the psychology of building the habit. So he took a group of married couples, no, just a group of couples, same sex and heterosexual. And he was like, so what I need you to do is, and these people were having problems in their relationship. So he was like, can you commit to 7 days, no matter the distraction? I need you for just 7 days to just have sex. Make the time, have sex, and see if it becomes a habit.
Wow,
and half of his yeah, and he was like, so half of the couples didn't make it through the full 7 days. They made excuses. It was like, we're fighting and she just won't do what I want her to do, or he's just not providing a good environment. So it was a whole bunch of excuses. But I'm like, what if you just put all that aside? For the couples who were successful, they was like, no matter what, we get into a fight, we still had the sex. And over the course of time, whatever we was fighting about or whatever the issue was, I can't tell, even if I can't tell you what it is, it's gone. But there's an intimacy now that has been restored. Something that we didn't have before. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, if we could just get back in the practice of just doing that, communicate there's a problem, and get back to doing what you're lacking. And if the person can't meet your needs, then look. So me and Jesse do this thing, and I think we out of practice from last year. But typically on our anniversary, we'll go out to dinner. He'd take me to a nice restaurant, and we would evaluate the relationship.
Now, what see, Eddie, that's not just me. It's Falonda. It's not a psychologist.
But it is, you know, what could we do different? What could I have done better? What would you like more of? Like these kinds of things.
And you don't take it personal.
Yeah, you don't take it personal. And then once you provide that safe, that kind of safe space, the needs should get met. Or you sit down and have a conversation of whether or not we still want to be in this relationship.
And that's a lot of people. That's it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Like a lot of people, they get into these relationships. Before we even get to marriage, a lot of people get into these relationships and they think that over the course of time, the thing that attracted you is the thing that consistently keeps the relationship going. But people change and people evolve. And so when we become different, can I grow with this person or can I not grow with this person? Because sometimes you reach a plateau and that relationship is seasonal. I've been engaged 3 times before I ended up making it to the altar. He was married once before.
Time's a charm.
4th time was a charm. But before we made it to the altar. But those are people who in the beginning I completely saw myself with spending the rest of my life with. And here's a little side story. And if he see this, I'm not gonna mention his name, so he'll be okay. But I was engaged to someone that I was in love with, but we had never had sex. And then one time he came because he was in the military, and then he came home on leave. And then I was like, "Hey, look, now's the time because this is like getting serious, and you about to get out, and so we should go ahead and have sex because I desire you." And then we had sex, and it was over before I knew it started. Yeah. And I didn't know back then. I was immature. I ain't know no better. So I didn't know that, like, if a guy go a whole long time without, that first time he have it, he ain't got no control over it. Oh, this thing is happening. So he was finished. And I was sitting there like, are we starting? And he was like, what had happened was, and I was like, ooh. And so let me be honest with you. In my immature state, and rather than communicating with him, I was like, I ghosted him. I did. I fully admit
wow.
it.
And you guys were engaged?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was like, ooh, no. I'm just gonna fade away. Just,
And I'm
fade
a
away.
and men, I'm gonna
Wait a
tell you,
minute. Hey, Janelle, she in them comments. I see you,
men
girl.
are not going to stick around when they feel, because also there's a part to that too, right? How he felt about it. Because if he hasn't had sex with you and he's not really having sex, and it happens, what does that do to his mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
does he feel that? And so, I had a conversation the other day, and Tina always telling me I always try to push a book on somebody, but I was telling my sons the other day, right, that I always suggest two books. And one of the books I always suggest, I think I said this the last time, was Pimp by Iceberg Slim. If you're a male out here, I don't care if you're religious, church going, non-religious. If you a male, white, black, Mexican, whatever, you need to go get that book, Pimp. You need to order that tonight. Not my book. I didn't write it. But Iceberg Slim tries to explain something to you about male mentality in that book from a man who grew up around hustlers, pimps, people who knew how to manipulate human beings to do things that they should not do. And so it's a very good read or an understanding. But one of the things he talks about in that book, right, is the effect that women have on the psyche of a man.
That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And how even at a young age, 5, 6 years old, the things that women do. So for the women that got children out there and ain't got a man in their life, the things you say about men stick with that little boy, stick with that young man.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so he watched his mother dog out a good man. And he told himself, put it in the book, that when I watched my mother dog out that good man, had a good job, was willing to take care of kids that wasn't his, he said, I am never going to be that dude. I'm never going to be him. I'm going to be the hustler, the pimp, the guy that runs through women. I'm going to make sure that these women bow to me. So when you look at these young men out here in these streets doing these things and doing everything that they're doing and showing themselves online and degrading women, they all have mothers too, aunties, sisters, women examples. And so we always say, well, they don't have a male in the home, but they do have women in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And when those women, they have to understand everything that you're saying, right, has an effect. So, like you just said with that man, and people do it because they're immature, because we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But who does he got to go to? Who does he have to go to say, man, this happened to me, man, I couldn't hold it, it just happened. And that a lot of men gonna keep that to themselves. And they're going to have that as a pain. And then he going to think something is wrong with me. Now, the next woman that he would, how's that going to affect with her? Well, I don't care how she feel. I'm going to get in here and do what I get what I'm going to get and get out of here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I've heard that before. Right.
So all of these things have an effect. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's so true. It's so true. But again, who's
we
talking
need to
about
change that narrative in the church. Even if the church is the one that's outsourcing, who do you need to talk to in order for you to get the answers you need?
Well, I think also in terms of the question as well, I want to jump on the first thing that Falonda said, because I think it's so critical, and I don't want us to miss it, is that you have to know yourself. I use the cliche all the time: two halves only make a whole in mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
Our problem is, a lot of our problem is that we get into these relationships, sexual or otherwise, not knowing ourselves. We talked about the last time we was on here. I made the statement about masturbation. Folk was, oh my God, clutch the pearls, but don't understand that forget the all the other things about it. How better do I recognize what I like if I don't know what I like and I can't experiment with somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
I only know what foods I like if I try it.
Mm-hmm.
I only know what clothes I like if I try it. But you want me to, through osmosis, know exactly what feels good to me, and I've never tried it with myself or with someone else. I recommend, and I've started the last couple of days recommending this series on Netflix, especially for women, because y'all have it real hard, because don't nobody tell y'all nothing about nothing for yourselves. There's a series on Netflix called the Principles of Pleasure, and it talks about the mind, the body, and something else I haven't really watched about this. It's like a 3-part series, and it goes into detail about the anatomy, about orgasm, where that comes from, and how to do that, and the different types of things, but stuff that nobody ever talks about. And then it goes on to also deal with, hey, look, you need to know for yourself what you like. I can't put on my wife to know what I like if I can't teach her and tell her.
Mm-hmm.
So now she's frustrated because she can't please me. I'm frustrated because she can't please me, but don't nobody know how to please me.
Now that segues into the next question. A lot of married people don't know whether they should watch porn because individually they may learn that way, but when they get together, they're like, I don't know if I should let him know or her know that I watch porn, and that's where I learn these tricks and things that I want to experiment and explore or try, whatever. Do you think that marriage should be open to watching porn without that guilt?
I I think it has to be very, very. You have to be very, very careful with it.
Yeah.
It can be. It can in itself can be an addiction. One. It can
Mm,
also cause unrealistic expectations too. You
unrealistic.
also don't know what the circumstances behind them are, because there's a lot of people, from what I understand, who get sex trafficked into the
Traffic
porn.
that person. Yep.
So you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what you're supporting. So that's a very and I'm not trying to dodge the question, but it's a very complicated a question that deserves a more complex answer, because there's so many layers in it. But in terms of, if you just take it at face value,
Mhm.
I would say you and your partner can be open to it, as long as you and your partner agree y'all are open to it, in order to be able to enhance each other. But don't use it as a substitute for. Don't use it as a, oh, you know what? She did this, so how come you can't do this? First of all, you don't understand how uncomfortable these scenes and these positions are for women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
I
Trying to get some of this stuff on here, and
right.
and then you also
Look,
don't have the same equipment that he working with to be able to get that kind of result. You got to be realistic. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Falonda?
like, look, and if I could be and get ready to clutch a little imaginary pearls, here it is.
Woo!
So I at one point worked behind the scenes of an adult film
You did
on,
what?
Wow.
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
and I've been on the set, and I know what it takes and what the reality is. I know how long. Look, in order to get those wonderful camera angles that y'all be desiring,
Mhm.
you got to get into some uncomfortable positions.
Uncomfortable.
It's a whole lot of lube, and it's a whole lot of not being turned on,
Mm.
and it's acting. It's acting.
Come on now.
Mhm.
Come on
I'm
now.
like, it's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it in order to get those wonderful, great shots in you. So if you thinking that you're gonna get into a relationship and she's supposed to be able to get that, you have to stretch,
Oh,
because it's him in that, it's him in your vagina, and it's a camera.
Mhm.
So you got to be able to bust it wide open enough so
That
that
both can
the
fit.
shot can get got. Because without the shot, it's just two people making noises and making emotions, and it looks like Skinamax or HBO After Dark. That's
And
what it looks like,
and that ain't what they paying for. And now,
and that's not what they paying for.
and now, what are they doing now? You run a very big risk here with porn now, because porn now has opened itself up just like society has opened itself up. So
Mhm.
if you one of them people that's watching porn, hey, that's all good. But don't be surprised if you see two people up in there and then three other people come in and they doing things like, oh, I didn't. This is not what I wanted to see, right?
Right.
But that's
Janelle said, this is too much just hearing about it.
but that's
It
that's
is.
what
Too much
goes on.
work.
But I'm gonna tell. I told y'all this last time, right? When I was in film school, first day, the instructor told us, go film porn, right? Because it's money. But the thing that they don't, and Falonda did it exactly on that, is acting. It's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
A lot of the women, if you go and you read the testimony of some women who have been in porn, who can't have kids anymore, who
Yeah.
are physically damaged, who have had numerous STDs, right?
Oh yeah.
That have permanently messed them up. But you looking at the fantasy, that's what porn is supposed to do. It's a fantasy, right? Of what you think that you want. But that's still titillation. That's not reality. So then you go in and you slap your woman as hard as you can, and she don't like that on the behind, and see how the mood just dropped in the room, right?
See if you don't get swung on.
Right?
Get somebody with show enough.
right? And then
I ain't doing that in porn. I mean, is that what you're trying to say?
and then you turn around,
Right.
or worse, you take your hand. And I know some of y'all out here, Christian, y'all gonna clutch your pearls, like Falonda said, but this is a conversation that needs to happen.
I'm clutching. I'm just saying.
Look, you take your hand and you go shove it into that woman's body, thinking I saw this in the porn, and then you hurt her. If you watch them old shows, Sex Sent Me to the ER, do you understand why these people were at the ER? Because some moron saw something on some television, on some porn, and went, "Hey man, let me go get these big old boggles and stick this up in this person, or let me go bite and pull and yank." And next thing you know, you like, whoa, now hold on, there's the last part of this. Now you're traumatized towards sex. You traumatized. She, I done lost a testicle. I done been cut. I'm hurting on the inside, right? I don't want nobody ever touching me. I don't want to give that trust to nobody else.
Yeah.
And so now you are messed up mentally and physically because it all started because somebody was watching that porn and went, "Oh, let me go try this." Right?
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's the reality of it. And I do say for married couples who are having issues with sex, or just couples in general, if it's not clicking, then go ahead and see a therapist. There are real sex therapists, and not the kind that you think that be showing up in porno movies. Not that. But people who deal with behind the scenes, the emotional disconnection, as well as people who do teach courses. You could go as a married couple. I would love it one day if we could do like a married couple retreat where we have actual sex therapists come in to talk about the parts of the body. It's not just about just stick. It's not about that. What about the
turn
nerve?
up for that service? I'm just saying.
You say you here for that? Yeah. What about the parts of the body? What about the other erogenous zones that exist on the body for both men and women? I tell you, ladies, I probably shouldn't. I'm gonna say it anyway. For ladies, go ahead and streak your nails lightly down the center of a man's back and see what kind of reaction you get. Everything ain't about his penis.
Yes,
that's true.
And that segues to another question. There was a young lady. There's young ladies get this impression that they have to be naked because naked is sexy. Naked is sexy. I'm gonna turn them on, and every time a gift giving time comes around, I'm just gonna show up naked. But when a gift giving time comes around for her, she wants an actual monetary gift,
which angers me. And I'm not even a gift person, and Falonda's I can't stand gifts. But listen, let me tell you as a man, because I've seen that conversation on Twitter as well, doing that happen around Valentine's Day and some of these other things. Listen, your vagina is not a gift every year. Let me just say it that way and just go ahead and put out. It's not. And here's the hurtful reality of it. Over time, unless a man understands how to condition his own mind, I as a man will get bored seeing you naked because I've grown a not a resistance, a desensitivity.
You did desensitize, yeah.
So now you mad because you done walked in the room naked and I'm still playing my video game. Because the other side of that is every other time during the year almost that you walk around me naked is not for sex anyway. So you've also conditioned me to see you naked and not see sex. You conditioned me to you just going to the laundry for clothes, or you just got out the shower, leave you alone, or whatever the case may be. So I'm gonna keep playing my video game until you give me a reason to jump in. And if I heard, I'm gonna shut up after this because I know I'm gonna have to. I heard one of my favorite comics of all time, dead comedian now. He said this, and I laughed hysterically, and then thought about it. I was like, oh, if people understood the gem he just dropped, they'd be really upset. It's Patrice O'Neal, and he said he asked a question. He said, "Please help me," and he said it in raunchier terms, but he said, "Please help me understand, when did vagina become more valuable than penis? When did that happen? Because a man can't come to you and say, 'Hey, here's my penis. This is my gift to you,' and you take it. But you're supposed to be able to say, 'Hey, open legs. item value number, here you go. And it's supposed to be an acceptable gift. Like when did it become an unequal balance where that's the case?
Okay,
When
I'm
did it
just gonna
become
have
a
to
value on one
interject
than the
here
other?
because quite frankly, as quiet as it's kept, I want that gift open, even especially more so on gift giving times. But that's not the only gift that I expect to receive or the only gift I expect to give. So
But people are conditioned to think that
yes,
that's the
you
way
are.
it is. And
Mhm.
Jesse asked a good question. When did that happen? Well, we have people, because I'm gonna be honest with you. What I see it as is manipulation and prostitution, right?
That's
Because
exactly what
that's
it is.
exactly
That's what
what you're doing.
Taisha said.
There's manipulation and prostitution. You are selling me a something, right? You are giving me something and saying that this flesh, this momentary thing, is supposed to be everything that I need. But this is the thing. I laugh because I saw Taisha, but I saw that Eddie wrote already opened that gift. If I already opened that gift, and every time you keep giving me that gift, it's the same gift.
Same gift.
Man, I don't want that gift, right? That's not a gift, right?
Mhm.
The fact that you are making your sex a gift is a problem, right? And that needs to be talked about. Now, I'm not saying you can't put rose petals on the floor and you can't get in the bed and do it and try to get with each other after, like y'all said, go out for dinner, have a good time, exchange gifts, tell you that I love you, give you something that I know that you like, that you enjoy. And then as a cherry on top or something on top, hey, then we become intimate, right? That's all good. If you try to give me a different sex position or something we ain't tried, right? On top of that, maybe I won't say it as a gift, but I say, oh, that's pretty cool. That's something that we did that marks this anniversary, this thing, whatever. But if the only thing you trying to do is walk out and show me something, then that's a problem.
Right.
That's a
Now,
problem.
where we learning these tricks at? Where people supposed to learn these tricks?
What do you mean tricks?
Positions, different positions, and
Oh,
all of this stuff.
books,
They're everywhere.
movies.
What's the chance of book thing that's they got diagrams of positions you could try
for free. You can get
what is
online.
the book? Let me be honest with you. I
Janelle
learned a
said
whole
Google.
Google.
Yeah, this 2022. This information age.
Yeah,
Right.
pull up the Kama
So-
Sutra, Indian stuff.
That's the book I was saying, the Kama Sutra. Yeah. To ask, let me say, let me rephrase that because I almost said it in a really overly harsh way, overly Jesse way. To not recognize that there are options and ways to find different positions, different things to try, is to be in willful ignorance in this day and age.
Yeah.
Amen.
You are stuck in your ways and just don't want to get. Falonda, I'm stuck. There's some things I ain't trying to do. But here's the other side of it. We have also had that conversation.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that she understands why there's some things I ain't gonna do. And none of my reasoning has anything to do with church. It has to do with my comfort level.
Dustin
I
said,
like
let
Dustin.
Let us try this
Give me 2 minutes to stretch first.
I ain't mad at you, Dustin. I ain't even mad. I
love
think
it.
everybody should be flexible like that to say, okay, give me a moment. Let me, work myself into, doing this. Hype yourself up, go to the bathroom, talk yourself into, this next position y'all get ready to do.
But see, some positions you
I
shouldn't
know, right, Janelle?
You shouldn't be doing anyway because they're not healthy for you. It's called going in and looking at it and doing research.
Janelle, it's after 5.
Doing research. If you doing a position that's gonna cut your air off, right?
Come on.
Then you need to understand that's not the position for you. There are things that are out here for people who are heavier, smaller, whatever. Just because a person that's 125 pounds is doing whatever in this diagram that you're looking at, don't mean that your whopping 300 plus something behind need to be up here and die, right?
Now I've seen some people who do cartwheels still able to do cartwheels and they 300 pounds. So if you're trying to do that helicopter move and you still 300 pounds, just
know
your limitations. Yeah.
Clint Eastwood
No,
said in that
yo,
movie, every man got to know his limitation.
listen.
Look, women
I am
have to know
40
their
years old. I'm
limitations.
pretty strong, but I
Amen,
got a bad
Falonda.
ankle, 2 bad knees, a bad shoulder, and a bad back. There are some things I can't. I can lift my wife up, but I can't hold her for long. We both gonna get hurt. We try that.
Exactly.
There's some things that are because of age or circumstance or whatever that are now off the table. She could lose 188 pounds, and I still would be like, you know what? I ain't taking no chances because I got a bad ankle, 2 bad knees, a bad back, a bad shoulder. There's some things we cannot do. I'm 40 years old with pains now.
If it
Okay,
ain't,
well, if you want to gift wrap
if it
that,
ain't
and that's
pleasurable,
what we're using that as a gift, and we're gonna try this experiment. I guess we
And I
can.
want you to have 9 and 1 already on your cell phone. So all you have to do is hit that other one. The ambulance is.
yeah, what they say, you got to know what what's the word, the stop word, the safety word.
word.
Your safe word.
What's my safe word? Breathe, right? Because if I'm dying, but the thing is though, when it stops becoming pleasurable, if it ain't pleasurable no more, then why are we doing it?
Look,
Right?
if I'm passed out, we are no longer, it's no longer we having sex. Look, I am a 38 now. Look, I will choke my own self. You think you're doing the thing, and I'm like, look, honey, this has now become autoerotic asphyxiation.
Yeah.
I choked to death. These things are heavy. I can't. I'm gonna have to give me a pillow. I need leverage.
Leverage. We need some great ventilation or some air going on because I overheat.
Right.
I pass out. This is not good. There are things that we and again that you have to discuss this stuff. Why you can be with someone you can't have these kinds of conversations and have these kinds of fun with me. We have all kinds of fun. She will joke with me all day long. Hey, all right, you sure you want to try this? Because I can't drive and we may have to go to the hospital. Like have these conversations.
Yeah.
And really and truly have them in the beginning and continually. Because like Falon said earlier, you grow and evolve. Bruh, I get cramps all the time, Dustin.
Ain't nothing worse than the cramp.
In the middle of that thigh cramp, ain't nothing wrong, man. But
and
you have
these conversations must take place without judgment and without emasculating your partner, because men, they act like they not sensitive, but they sensitive.
Well, we
Tell
act
them
like
you
we're
didn't
insensitive
come,
because we have to.
they mad, they hurt
Because
you.
society tells us that we have to, especially if you're a black man, tell you that you can't show no weakness, you cannot do that. And because the black man, let's talk about that part too, has been demasculated so much over the course of this country, right? The black man is constantly demasculated. I just posted something earlier tonight about the fact that somebody sent me a thing saying that white female slave owners didn't rape black men, trying to explain that it was only the white men. And I had to tell her, I had to put out there, I didn't call out, but I had to say, wait a minute, let me explain something to you. They did, right? These women did. Not only did they rape the black man, but they raped the black woman, right? It was safer to rape the black woman because less likely to get pregnant, but they also raped that black man. And so the idea is, where does these things come from? They made us feel like we were savages, fools, ignorant, just basically. On one of my shows, I talked about it. The man wrote in this book that they penises drag in the dirt. They're a bunch of savage monkeys. This is what they thought of us. And so when you have been told that, when you're constantly being told it, Harry, in that book, one of these books, Harriet Jacobs' book, The Incidents in Life of a Slave Girl. She talks, because I quoted her in that part. She talks about how they went out and got the most big buck savage. Don't this sound familiar? Big buck savage, raw black man that they could get, right? A roughneck, as y'all like to call them. You know, they used to call them back in the day. The white woman, and got that one because she knew, right, that if she could break him, her father would be more likely to see it was okay because she broke a really hard slave. That's insane. But this is the reality of why when we say black men feel a certain way when it comes to sex and the way we talk about sex, they tell us that we don't stay in the home. They tell us that we leave our families. And I'm not saying that brothers don't do that, but the idea.
And then we go with the system that I said I don't like.
But the idea is there. And Tina, I know you don't like to hear it, but the reality of it is that is a system. Whether you are willfully following it or blindly just a part of it, the system is there. But the only way to stop it is to admonish it, say, hey, that's wrong. This is what's going on. Because like I gave in your show the other day, the idea of the Matrix, they didn't go and wake everybody up, right?
Mhm.
They reached the ones who came to the reality that, wait a minute, something ain't right here. This ain't right, right? This don't feel right. And so once they understood that, it was easy to get them out of that system, and then they all were able to fight the system more effectively. I hate to use the Matrix as a thing, but that's the reality. That's what it is. This is a
That's
system.
what we're living in. That's absolutely what we're living in. It's a type of matrix where there is that system where it is you either are here or you're here, and at some point in time, because of whatever condition or whatever it is, you begin to see that something is not okay, and you either choose to say, well,
True.
that's just the way it's always been and we're gonna stay that way, or you choose to say, no, we're gonna try and break this, or at least I'm breaking out. Like, but one of the issues, especially with black men, is that we don't get the opportunity to truthfully and in earnest be able to say we want to break some of these other systems because we keep getting dragged back in. It's the reason that black men have a hard time showing emotion because we're told we're not allowed to, and we're told we're not supposed to. It's the reason that black men don't really know how to love on their families and love on their wives and love on their children the way they're supposed to, because we're not given that opportunity and allowed. Not only are we not given that opportunity and allowed as grown men, it starts when we're boys. I taught this to our youth class when we were youth ministers. I used to always say one of the things you have to get out of the habit of doing is hardening up these young boys and expecting them to be open grown men. No boy will drop down on the floor, skin his knee or whatever, and start crying. And the first thing you hear is, get up, big boys don't cry. But if a young girl skins her knee, everybody stops to make sure she's okay, pampers her and rubs her and gets the salve on the wound and everything. And this young boy is told, get up, big boys don't cry. And then as they get older, we're not told big boys don't cry anymore. We're told, hey, walk it off. And now I've heard this for 20 plus years. And now I find someone who makes my heart flutter a little bit. And I'm allowed to recognize that. But now I get into this relationship and you want me to immediately be open and give you all of my secrets and all of my everything. And no one has ever taught me that that's okay.
You can't be soft.
It's hard to do that. And so he's right. It's as much as it is a system, it's a mindset, but it's not a mindset that's broken easily, even in just the talking. This type of thing, especially for black males, even if we started today, if every black man today, grown man today, said we're changing the paradigm, you won't see the change for another 3 or 4 generations. That's how entrenched it is. It's like a great big yacht trying to make a turn. It's a slow turn.
Okay, so Dustin has a question. He says, doesn't the societal condition fall short due to the family rearing the next generation?
I
Okay,
don't know
so
if it's a falling short or it is a lack of knowledge. So you take my ideal. So you take like us and our daughter. Like before me getting married, to my daughter's knowledge, none of the other women in our family, none of the other women or men were married. Me and her biological father were not married. And so other than her grandparents on his side of the family, those were the only two that she knew was married. So her ideal and concept of marriage, and because she had seen me be in other relationships and be engaged and never make it to the altar, her ideal was that what's the point of being married? Because she done seen some things, some really bad things that she shouldn't have been exposed to, that didn't come from my house, because she was going to other people's houses and seeing some people being unfaithful. So, and she's not, we got to please don't think that your kids are stupid because they don't say nothing. Kids learn by watching you. They ain't gonna say nothing, but watch their actions and see what they learn.
Come on now. And people don't understand that. People do not understand that. I'm sorry. And the thing about it is, it's generational.
Yeah.
So when we talk about societal conditions falling short because of the next generation, it is generational. W.B. Du Bois, and while you all were talking, I was looking up this. He said, but in the propaganda against the Negro since emancipation in this land, we face one of the most stupendous efforts the world has ever seen generationally to discredit human beings, an effort involving universities, history, science, social life, family, and religion. The understanding is that they know very much why we are having these problems. I often try to, that's why I do what I, on my show, what I try to do to give you the Black historical identifiers to why they're doing that. Because there's a system. My wife doesn't like to hear it, but there is a system. And the system has been going on for quite some time. And the machinations of that system are designed. If you think it's just for Black people, then you are willfully ignorant.
Yeah.
It is not just for Black people. Poor whites, indigenous people, everybody has had some part to be played in the system. I told my wife earlier, we are in a stratified situation in this country. At the top, we have rich people pressuring down on everybody who they consider to be at the bottom. And while we all out here, just like the plates that control this planet, banging against each other and fighting and destroying things, they're sitting at the top just riding it out. Or they get a little bit of a shake.
And it doesn't impact them.
But they ride it out. And unfortunately, what it happens is generations have not become aware of this. They're not aware of it. They haven't been taught about it. And so we keep letting it go. Our forefathers, our grandparents, our parents didn't know to some extent. But we are living in an information age. See, I always tell people, God knows what he's doing, right? Because this information age has allowed us to see and research and to see things we never was hidden from us, right? We know we can have a better understanding of where we come from, what we've been through, right? And there are people in society going, we don't want them to know that. We don't want them to know that, right? We don't want them to know the secrets that we got, the things that we done. Can you imagine out of all the presidents that we've had in the United States, how much evil has been done, perpetuated against Blacks, indigenous people, everybody else that they know of, that they don't want to come out to the public, right? Because if it came out to the public right now, they'd be like, oh man, we would lose control of this country. But that's the reality of where we are. But over time, they give us a little bit, every little bit of time, right? A little bit more knowledge. And then when too much gets out, they get scared, like CRT, right? Oh, all I heard was CRT. Oh my God, CRT. But the reality of it is, this is your system that you built. We all work in it, so we all gonna be aware of it. At some point,
every time people say system, it's just like scratching the nails against a chalkboard. Let me explain why. Because it's just a mental conditioning, a mental conditioning of what people just use that as an excuse to excuse and validate wrong, immorality, and things that are contrary to our innate ability to discern right from wrong. And it just annoys me to no end because it's perpetuating that. And we need to stop perpetuating that. We see it's broken, and we keep on perpetuating it like we don't know it's broken. We see it's broken. We know what harm it's causing, but let's keep doing it.
Most of the people who created the system are dead.
But
the original system, they're dead.
That's why they condition the people that come up.
No. You do realize that by literal definition, you have by giving the definition that you gave of what you believe it is a mental conditioning, you have just simply defined system.
That's what it is.
That's literally what a system is. A system is something that is in place that conditions you to do anything. You can take it from in terms of physical human beings. You could take it in terms of mechanics or computers or whatever. All it is a condition to cause an output. And so
But when
when we
you
say
say system, what you're really referring to is okay, like a square peg going into a round hole. The system says the square peg cannot go into that round hole, even though the rough edges of that square, it can indeed fit into that circle because the hole is big enough. So because of the system says, okay, don't put the square peg in the round hole, despite the fact it fits, put it in the little square hole where you have to turn the square in the right angle in order to get it to be put in. If we were to word it properly, and you're a stickler for words, if we were to word it properly and say mental conditioning, then we can then start to think, I have the ability to control my mental ability to think. I have the ability to control instead of saying that this is a system that everyone agreed to and this is what we built, and even though it's broken, we're going to perpetuate this brokenness.
But
so
see,
here's
that's the
the
thing.
thing though. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But that's the thing. This is the thing. The fact of the matter is that they know you. Listen, I'm gonna go back to the Matrix again. And I do this because I could quote you the Euclidean thought on it, right? Things which are equal to the same thing are equal to each other. That's the Euclidean thought. But but the reality of it is this. In that movie, The Matrix, right? At one point, one of the movies in The Matrix, the guy says that we tried to create a matrix that gave you everything that you wanted, right? So you would be numb to the idea of and just go along with it. But what we found was that human beings, because we think, because we know, that goes back to that whole Euclidean thought. Things which are equal to the same thing are equal to each other. That is a natural way of being. We know that to be right because it makes sense, right? But the thing is, right, the human being in us knows that people, because Jesse said it earlier, even though that's math, even though that's theory, the human being in us that has free thought, free will, plays into the idea that, okay, yeah, this thing that you don't like to be called system is not right. That's because you are
It
aware.
knocks out the box free will.
Because you are aware that it's not right. But there are people in this world, in this country, in this society who do not know and are going every day, trudging into work, working in jobs under oppression, doing everything that is going on. We know that to be a fact. I'll give you an example. If you look, I told my father the other day, I think there were 9 million people who were around that we knew in the country and since the 1960s. Of that 9 million people, right, 5 to 6 million of them basically accepted segregation and racism as the standard of the day. Not because they thought that people were less than, but it was the thing that drove the country. So even when they went to work every day, they played into white supremacy. They played into the idea that people were less. It does not mean, right, that we're saying that people have to be in a system. There were people who obviously woke up and said, this ain't right on all sides. But they had to get enough people to break down the systemic issue. When you hear that word, it's like a truck that is just going. And until we can stop that truck, it's going to keep going. We have broken down some of them, but we are far, far outside of breaking them all down. And so don't let it get you upset because somebody says it is conditioning. But conditioning is only broken by what? Psychology tells you you have to put something else in there to stop them, to make them aware, oh, there is another avenue. Or that mouse is going to keep pushing that same button, expecting that they're going to get something that they're not going to get. But if they go over here and push another button, now it creates a difference here. Oh, I don't have to do this, right? That's where we need to get to in our thought process.
But my point was we're replacing the ideology of people have free will, autonomy, the will to do whatever they want, but the motivation, they looking for what, how can I condition you to be motivated to do what I want you to do? But go ahead, Jesse.
I was gonna say that the evil beauty of the system is this. It paints the picture that you're already using your free will.
Yep.
And so this is why the pushback between free will versus system winds up getting into a really gray kind of meshy area, is because the system uses your free will. So let me paint the picture like this. Okay, so if somebody came in the house right now, put a gun to your head, and said, "You either stand up and strip, or I'll blow your brains out," most people would just go ahead and strip, and they will say to you, "I have no choice."
No choice.
Because the alternative choice is not really a choice in their eyes. What the system has done is it presents you with a free will, but it's just like the devil. It makes the other side, the other option, seem like not an option at all. So I
Mhm.
have to do this. I have to accept white supremacy because the other option is white absolution. Most people who believe in white supremacy don't necessarily believe it because they believe that all other races are inferior. They believe in white supremacy for survival.
That's
Because
true.
Mhm.
if my race isn't supreme, then some other race is going to exterminate me. They fear black people rising because, oh my God, what if they do to us what we did to them? So we keep them down, not because we believe they should be down, but there's the other option. To me, seems like it's not an option. And that's how the system has built itself and made itself work, which is why I say system. It is a mental conditioning, but the presentation takes away your ability to really rationalize free will, which then begins to motivate people's actions. So it is a system. It's mental conditioning, true, but in order for the average person to really conceptualize it, they have to hear system, because it's easier to break system than it is to break mental
There you
conditioning.
go. I do agree. That's why I
And
said
and
we're not
and and
disagreeing.
that's that trick. That's that trick I
It's
taught
the owl.
on Monday. That's that trick I taught on Monday. I'm telling you, and the problem with that is words have power.
They do.
Words have power. And if we do not start to understand that power, we cannot manipulate it. We cannot change the narrative of it. And while we're sitting there complaining about the foundation broken and we need to replace it, when what really needs is fixing, then we starting over as if we have no knowledge at all. No knowledge of what worked. We're forgetting everything that the foundation had,
Dustin asked a
everything the
good.
foundation provided.
He asked a good question here, right? Is the matrix the controllers or the culture or the government? I think in that we keep losing ourselves, and I think that this is why I told you that we have to do a show talking about the point and counterpoint of this, because I
Mhm.
think it is very confusing to people to understand, right? But the reality of it is that we all work in a lot of this. I'm gonna add something else. A lot of subsystems,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
Control, and so this is the reality. And it may pain people. I tell folks all the time, history is painful and it may make you mad, it may piss you off,
Mhm.
but it's the fact.
The facts.
I just did an entire 2-week series talking about the men who deceived America. And I told you, from whether it's religious, rather scientific, whatever it is, right? They're hitting you from all sides.
Mhm.
And if you are lost in the idea that it's just the black man being hit, I read one of Dr. John Henry Clark once said, no, the black man is just the one that gets hit first a lot of times, but he ain't the only one getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
When I tell
Mhm.
folks, I used to tell them all the time, when the wolf comes to the door of the black man, and you the white dude that live next door, and you ignore that wolf came in and killed that black family, that wolf gonna come to your house soon too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It just went there first. And so we are putting ourselves into the idea that it's the government, that it ain't none of that, right? It's
Mhm.
none of that. What it really is that we are working in subsystems. Tina, you're absolutely right. We have to identify it to break the conditioning. If you don't want to use the word system, call it whatever you want to call it. But the fact of the matter is, it's there.
Let me
And
tell
as
you why they don't use the
But
right word. Because if
what
they
is the right
say
word? That's what I want to ask you.
if
What is the right word?
the right word is your free will, and if they say it was your free will, you say no, I didn't. That wasn't what I chose. That's all the options I was given. That's the only thing that was available. And then they say, well, it's the system. It's systemic. They
Can I ask you a question?
always say
That's a good.
that.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But I want you to think about this. The system tells you that when you get up on that road and you go drive, it says 65 miles per hour. Anything outside 65 miles per hour, you're doing what? You speeding, right? And you go get a ticket, right? So, and people do it. People break the system all the time. I'm gonna go speed. I'm gonna do whatever, and then they take whatever they gonna get for speeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people go overboard. They doing 90 in a 65, right? And it might cost them their life. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You are. Jesse just said it. You are given the illusion of free will. As a citizen in this country, you are under certain laws and restrictions. You don't have the freedom to walk out and go to your neighbor and blow his brains out because he let his dog crap on your lawn, right? Because the system says if you do that, you're going to jail, right? You might get the death penalty. Don't get caught up in the vernacular. Understand the fact of what they're doing to you, right? And this is what it's really about. It's the idea of what they're manipulating and what they're taking from you. When you say free will, it's not free will. No American really has pure free will. I know that's amazing for you to hear, but it's the facts. That's the facts.
Here's the truth. Spiritually, no one has free will. If you really are a believer in Christ, and I'm sorry, Falonda, stepped on your toes. So
That's okay.
Super quick. If you really are a believer in Christ, you don't have free will. The Bible says that when you are in sin, you are a slave to sin. Paul, who became converted, said, I, Paul, who am a slave to Christ. The essence of free will is this. In a holistic nutshell, whether you're talking spiritually or naturally, whatever, the essence of free will is simply which master do you want to serve? No one wants to look at it in that regard because we hate that terminology, but that's the reality of it. What master do you want to serve, and what rules of that master are you looking to conform unto? Because religion, spirituality, God's kingdom is a system.
But even though the Bible also says that we're supposed to obey the laws of the land, so I just want to put that in there.
It says obey the laws
which
of the
still
land.
involves us with the system.
And it's only obey the laws of the land as long as they do not supersede or go against the laws of Christ. Because the moment that the laws of the land say that I need to go kill my brother, that goes against God. I can't do that.
That's why a lot of women get confused that, oh, I'm supposed to obey my husband, and what my husband want me to do, I'm supposed to do it, even though it's outside of the body and the will of God.
If, and I'm going to say this, if you have a husband that is not giving you, right, reverence and honoring you, right, then just like with any unjust master, right, any unjust person, right, boss, whatever, you should not stay there and take abuse, right? And again, that comes down to your idea of what is free will or will, right? Let's not say free will. I'm not willing to sit here and let you beat the hell out of me and treat me like this, right? And I'm going to go someplace else. I'm going to get out of here. We got that whole thing going on with that Johnny Depp thing going on right now.
Whoa, that trial is crazy. But
the reality of it is, I said years ago, right? Wrote a blog and told you that Me Too requires less proof than me and you, right? And I said that because people will always manipulate. I'm not saying there are not victims of abuse and things. What I'm saying is there will always be somebody who will manipulate the system or that what's going on to get what they want, right? When I read that yesterday, where she was like, well, go tell somebody that you abuse. See who believes you. I was reminded of a lot of things in the Bible and slavery and history. See who believes you that we're doing this to you. Hitler killed all of them Jewish people. And for a very long, that people keep saying, oh, we went over to go stop that. No, we didn't. We did not go into World War II for that. Right? We went in World War II because it was optimal for us and our alliances to go into World War II, especially after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, because we didn't declare war against the Germans. We declared war against Japan. Then Japan, who had an ally with Germany, Germany warred against us. We did not declare war against Germany because a lot of things that the Germans were doing and the stuff that they did were very similar to what we were doing over here. And folks don't want to hear that, right? So understand, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to take on, and what you're willing to have happen with you? So this is a deep conversation.
I think that we have to really, it starts in our homes. Like, if we start reteaching these things and teach critical thinking again. So we think that this is a new theory, but our parents have been doing it. So I give you a really simple example. So if my grandma told me, she was like, you need to put buttermilk in your biscuits. I said, I don't have any buttermilk. She said, go put some vinegar and some milk, let it clabber. That's buttermilk. Critical thinking. If we go back to doing that in our homes, me and Ashley, our daughter, were having a conversation today, and she was like, being an adult, I feel like I've been sold a bad bill of goods because there's supposed to be all this freedom and stuff. I was like, and let me be honest with you. I was like, I never told you that. This is why I told you to enjoy your youth while you can, because the appearance of being an adult and having all this freedoms, nobody talks about the other stuff. What happens now that I am responsible financially for my own self? What does it mean to go to a job and work a job in order so that you can eat and live and have a roof over your head that you hate? And it ain't like with your parents. Your parents, you could be like, oh, and I get punishment. I'll go to my room, and your parents still pay the bill. You don't go to work, you get evicted, you homeless.
Right.
So this idea of we have to get better as in our own individual circles, in our own individual lives of teaching like this. I know what the world is going to tell you, but there's the reality of what's really going on.
Right.
And so once we can get to that point, that we start more reinforcing critical thinking about our choices, about our decision, not just the bare bones basics of it, not just our education and how we get schooled, but how we deal with one another.
I agree.
And
that's what I work on Mondays. That's absolutely right, Falonda. I love that, sis. Go on, girl.
Well, yeah, we really have to get to that point. I'm like, by the time, if we do that, if we stop looking at the big picture, systematic racism will not end, because let's just be honest, it's still profitable.
It is very profitable.
We have this whole pipeline of from the school system into the jail system that they talk about. And this is how, for people who don't believe that it's a real thing, most of these prisons are private. And the legislatures and the people who make the laws for these sentencing are the same people who financially influence the politicians. They're the same people. When people say, well, I'm just not going to vote. Well, you have made a choice to be silent. You
will be ignored.
Right.
You will be ignored.
So if you want out of this, great. Everybody else will make the decisions around you, and you just sit there.
And that's what I tell my sons. If you decide, if I say, okay, you can go with me, or you can go with your father, or you can stay with your father, and I'm walking out the door, but you're still standing in that same place where we said that conversation, I walk out the door. You made a decision, even though you didn't make a decision. You're still there. So no decision is still a decision.
So there's a Professor Llewellyn's put out there, but our kids aren't taught to critically think. And was it just this last week? I sat there specifically, and someone asked me, sent me a message. Why don't you go to this whole thing on teachers? Because a lot of us are sending our kids to teachers and don't even know who these teachers are. And secondarily to that, the teachers aren't there to teach our kids to critically think. They're there to push whatever the agenda or the curriculum that is. Call it whatever you want to call it.
It's a system. The curriculum of the schools is a system.
I agree, but call it whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is they're not there to teach your kid to critically think. They're there to teach them that George Washington wouldn't cut down a cherry tree, even if that's a lie, right? Why? Because this book told me that that's what I'm supposed to teach your child, right? They're not there to talk about George Washington being a slave owner, whatever else he was involved in. They're not there to do that. They're there to teach them only this. And so then when we turn around and our kids only know certain things about who they are, right? This is my issue with schools, right? When they only teach our kids certain things about Black life, I'm thinking of Black folks right now, then what's going to happen is you can't be surprised if they want to be criminals, thugs, and something else when everything that they picked up in the book told them that you were subservient, you were criminal, you didn't have no daddies, your mamas was no good, they was a bunch of sluts and whatever. If this is what you're getting told all the time, then it's going to condition, systemize you, whatever you want to say, to think a certain way. This is why conversations like this need to happen. This is
And this is
why
why they have the prison, the pipeline school system going on. But this segues into the question in the relationships of what's too much, what's enough. When do you, in a relationship, just like with school, when do you determine this relationship is a bad relationship? That enough is enough, too much, because people will continue to tell you. Well, I've heard a lot of people tell women, "Oh, he's a good provider. You got to stay with him. He's a good provider. Oh, he's at least he's not cheating on you, but he's beating on you. He's verbally abusive, but at least he's not hitting me." When is enough enough?
It is knowing yourself, and not only just knowing yourself, understanding what you are willing to tolerate, what is important to you. So if provision is the main thing that's important to you, and this dude is providing for you, and that's the only thing that is at the hierarchy of your needs, then you may want to stay because that's what you want. But if you don't recognize that, and again, it goes into self-exploration. We don't spend enough time dealing with us before we become a we. I want you to complete me and me to complete you. And so I never really know what I like, what I don't like, what I'm willing to tolerate. I have a thing I do with everybody that I come to that comes to me for counseling in terms of relationships. First thing I tell them to do is say, you need to make 3 lists. I think I told you this before. 3 lists. You need to make a list of what you want in your man or your woman, what you don't want, and those are the easy ones, but you need to be very detailed. Don't say you want a man who's romantic and you don't outline what's romantic to you. Don't say you don't want a man who's violent and you want him to go look and fight for you when you feel disrespected. What are you willing? But the third thing is the biggest thing, which is, what are you willing to tolerate? What are those things in your life that may not be exactly what you want, but this is not a line that says I'm leaving? When you can find those things within yourself, you can answer that question of what's too much. Everybody has their own too much. Some people's too much is different, and I can't judge your too much by my standards. I can't be like, oh, I can't believe they left because this, man, that's nothing. Well, that was nothing for you. That ain't nothing for them.
And a lot of people lose out on a relationship that they actually still want to be in because they're worried about what other people gonna say. Oh, you still with that person because, oh, I wouldn't have did it. Are you still with that person? I wouldn't take that. Okay, your enough was enough for you. I'm
Ask
trying
Hillary
to
Clinton
figure
that
this
one.
out. Falonda, you have
Right.
something?
So when it comes to things like that, you have to realize that you understanding who you are and what your motives are for being in that relationship determines what is too much. I was listening to this TikTok video today, and this woman was talking about, so she married this guy while he was in med school. So they get married, he becomes a doctor. Come to find out, they go through some rocky stuff in their relationship. He got a 2-year-old by a coworker.
Oh.
So she did what society said we supposed to do as women when your husband cheat. She left. She got out there and then realized she had been supporting his endeavors and his goals for so long that she had not done, even though she went to school and got her own degree, financially. If you, like, real talk, be a stay-at-home wife for 12 years and then try to go back out into the workforce and they look at your resume and like, what were you doing for the last 12 years?
Because they don't
It
give
don't
no
work
room.
that simple.
It doesn't.
So she went out there and she tried to make it work, couldn't, So with that understanding, him and her got back together because, for one, she didn't want to be a single parent. Speaking as a person who was a former single parent, it gets ghetto out there. Now I got to be mommy, daddy, provider, nurturer, the whole 9 yards. It's ghetto out there. So she did what she had to do, and here was her motivation for going back. I don't want to be a single parent, and I financially can't do this on my own. So I could have half of his money with alimony and child support. I could take a percentage. I'm sorry, not even half. 25% of, or I could move back in with him and get it all. And what she did was, instead of playing checkers like we're supposed to do, she went back into the relationship and she started her own business and got him to give back the investment she gave into his career and his livelihood, started stacking her papers. And she said, I'll be there. I'll be there stacking my papers until I'm ready to leave.
Being wise.
Right. Like sometimes, so for everybody, that's not a deal breaker. For some people, it's sex. We can't have a conversation. I'm not getting, look, my sex needs aren't getting fed. So people criticize people like Monique when she said, I got me and my husband have an open relationship. But if their sex needs aren't getting met and they're both okay with it, if they both consent to it, that's their marriage. It ain't gonna work for my marriage, but for their marriage, that works for them. And so that's not a deal breaker. At the same time, she the same person that left a man because he was abusive. So it's an individual thing, but these kinds of conversations need to be had together up front. Like I told Jesse, I was like, look, let me be honest with you. In the beginning of our, look, certain things are deal breakers. If you put your hands on me, I'm done. Because what I'm not going to do is go back into I've been in that kind of relationship, and I'm not going to self-hurt myself again because somebody else made me feel less than. You physically put your hand. I don't want to do that. If we got to fight each other physically, then maybe we need to not be together. I said at the same time, if you cheat on me, I have one statement, and I have said this to every guy I've ever been with. If the idea pops in your head and you do it, and I feel, if I discern, if I think that you did it, here's my phrase to that. I've already done it. It's fair game. If you do it, know that I already did it. And I did it better because I would never tell you unless you ask me. If you ask me, that's on you. And I have given some guys some honest response. My baby daddy's biological father, after we broke up and we got to talking one day, he was like, hey, so you remember that time when I cheated on you? And I was like, yeah. He was like, so like, I'm remembering that you said that if that ever happens, I was like, and I lived up to my word. He said, what are you saying? I said, yeah, I had sex with another dude in your house while you was at work. He said, what? I said, did you ask? Were you asking because you wanted a real answer, or did you just want to bring it up? I said, yeah. Why you think I never brought it up again? I was like, we beyond even, because he wasn't the only one I slept with. We beyond even, sweetie. Don't even worry about it. Once you hear me stop talking about a thing, it's already done.
Yeah.
But we have to have these kind of uncomfortable conversations up front. Don't wait until we at the altar. Don't wait until we 10 years down the marriage. In the beginning of the dating, them first 3 dates, you need to talk about who you are in a relationship, because who you are, your PR representative at the beginning and you inside a relationship are 2 different people. I am not the same person I was dating in this marriage. Because dating me, you a temp. You could go at any moment, and I have no problem with it. But in my marriage, I am loyal to my husband. I took my vows seriously. For better or for worse, in sickness and in health, I'm loyal to this because that's who I am. So if this is who you told me you are in the beginning relationship, I expect you to still be that person. And if things change, let me know. Hey, heads up, I feel like I feel differently and I may want to change. But that takes conversation. We got to get comfortable with having the uncomfortable conversations.
And that's why I don't like the thing system, because a lot of people look at Eddie and I and say, oh, y'all together? You know, that's not possible because it's systemically not in the system that's the way that works out.
I've never heard that.
Oh, I have. People feel very liberal conversating with me, and I encourage it. I encourage it because I thoroughly enjoy it. At the same time, I like to understand what people thinking, and I want them to feel at liberty to tell me what they're thinking because now I can match up your actions
Well, that
with what's.
explains the confusion on system because you were talking to a I believe the word. But if you talk to a nincompoop, I'll use that word, right? That doesn't really understand what they're talking about. You got to sometimes just,
Throw
brush
it
it off.
out. Hmm.
The
Now, on the
bottom,
last show, Jesse, you said people should be able to control their horniness, but you did not
you
explain,
didn't ask me
elaborate.
about my
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
that
ahead,
was just
Eddie.
really rude.
I'm sorry.
And
I'm
then you cut
sorry.
me
You want me to
off.
come over there and give you a hug? I'm so
Then
sorry.
you
Go
cut me
ahead, Eddie.
off.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think because I deferred earlier, you just was like, well, I guess he'll defer all the time. No, all I was going to say is,
I'm gonna give you a hug after this.
we spent a lot of time talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I heard it was briefly mentioned just right there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people should go back and watch those episodes that I did on Monday
But
shows about
a
the
lot of
hierarchy of
people,
needs.
you asked the question of, the idea of what people can deal with, whatever. But if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow's breaks it down, and it's different for everybody, right? It's different needs, different things in the hierarchy. But at the heart of it, I just heard Falonda say, if you can physically, I feel comfortable. Biologically, I feel comfortable with you, right? In this relationship. That's one step. Do I feel safe like you're going to be able, if I let you in my life, are you going to hurt my finances? Are you going to hurt my being? Are you going to wreck my car, right? You have people going on dates and destroying folks' cars and stuff. Are you going to mess up my job? You'll come to my job acting ignorant? Are you going to do any of these things that are going to hurt my basic need? Because that's what he talks about, right? And if you're going to hurt my basic need, I need to know that early. I need to be able to see that quickly. Because before we get to the psychological needs, my love, your being, you want me, I want you, we're friends, I'm intimate, we kissing each other. I need to know, right? And a lot of people show you. We be blind to it because we be looking at, oh, she look good, oh, he look fine. So I'm gonna ignore all of these signs that this is a horrible person that I should not be messing with. And then by the time you get to the psychological needs where I want to feel like I need somebody and they want to care for me, we mad because they don't meet our psychological needs. They don't meet our fulfillment needs because now when we sit down to be intimate, he just get his roll off and he leave, or she treat me like, I'm just one of the dudes in her, and all these things play into that. So my comment is, make your decision from the beginning. If the person that you would is not meeting those basic needs, in other words, if you one of them women out there that feel like you got to take care of that man and treat him like a baby, you got to clothe him, feed him, do whatever, and that's all you do. He don't go to work. He's sitting on your couch playing video games all day, but you got kids, you got needs, you got desires that you want to be able to keep your basic needs. He shouldn't be in your life. Right,
but a lot of women are waiting because they see the potential. How long do
you wait?
Potential.
Ain't no potential.
That's such a problem.
That's a topic we could get into another time.
Oh my God!
Talk about dating potential.
You said the trigger word for you. Potential is the trigger word for me. I can't stand that word.
Ain't no potential there. They don't even exist. When this brother walk up in there, or you come in from working a hard day's work, and this brother is in his drawers playing Madden or whatever game, and then you walk in and he's sitting up there, he like, hey babe, whatever. He ain't cooked no food, he ain't got nothing prepared for you, he ain't even treating you like somebody that he care about. But he gonna tell you, and I'm gonna put it out here again, clutch your pearls, but I'm laying it down to her when we go to bed, right? That's what he's thinking in his mind.
Ain't gonna happen.
Right? But it does happen with some women because they get conditioned in the idea too that that's what a man's supposed to do.
Now I'm clutching my pearls.
Well, the other problem with that they have that have in that thought process is they believe that the reason that I have to hold on to him because he's laying down good pipe as a great plumber, they believe that great plumbers are hard to find. And that's not the truth. The reality is that you may not have the patience to help train your plumber to be great for you, because
Mhm.
you're a different house than the plumber who come in to go ahead and lay this pipe on. That goes back to the conversations. You have to be comfortable talking and training. There are very few men who are teachable who are not great lovers.
Mm.
The problem is I am great at what I do, but more because I'm a great listener than anything else. Now I'm older now, so I'm not as great as I used to be in terms of actualized performance. But my ear is very tuned. It's always been, is to the best of my ability, very tuned to what Falonda wants, what she needs. And when she said, "Hey, I don't like that, try this," okay, we try this, okay. And when Doc got that, okay, I'm gonna keep doing that until you let me know, okay, we need to try something different, because I don't want you exhausting this option. That's the issue. The mindset of, I'm gonna keep him because he's doing great work in the bed, and him thinking I can stay because I'm doing great work in the bed, is only because there's no teaching and conversation going on.
Yep.
Women, if more people, period, but especially women, started looking at themselves as a corporation more than just a person, things would be so much better. People laugh when my wife says temp versus permanent. Look at this bad boy as a corporation, and this person is coming as a potential employee to your company. You have, when you go into a job for a job interview, there is a job description that is already available for you. There is there are criteria, dress codes, and the whole nine. What you need
Employee handbook. Come on.
employee handbook on what you need to do to be able to work for my company. So when we go out on these first 3 dates, and she gives them 3, I don't even give them 3. You can learn most of this in the first date and a half. I am literally interviewing you in a fun setting to find out if you were good enough for me. I'm not interested in, oh, can we have fun? Nigga, I can have fun almost anywhere. And if you're compatible with me, we're going to have lots of fun. But right now, it's business. Let me go ahead and find out, what are these things that you meet? What is your credit score? What is
Talk
your
about it.
emotional credit score? The last relationship you had, what happened? Why'd y'all break up? No, I want the truth. I don't want just your version. If I were to ask her, what would she say? And then I also want to know, okay, so what are your thoughts on children? What are your thoughts on how they should be raised? What are your thoughts on marriage? I ain't trying to say we're gonna get married now. What are your thoughts on marriage? What is your religious ideology? What is your political affiliation? What's your background? Well, tell me about you as a child. What was your upbringing like?
Yeah.
Let me ask these questions now, so I can find out if you're fit for me. I tell folk all the time, they think I'm crazy. In the first 2 weeks from London, I dated, I asked her 2,000 questions. And that's not an exaggeration or just a random number.
You should.
It's a factual number.
Who's the world's longest interview?
Now, I hear a lot of people say that they don't want to be asked a million questions.
That
they
you
don't
don't
want
wanna
to
be-
go through all of that. And
That you don't wanna
be
too
settled.
much TMI. It's TMI.
Well, then you
But
don't wanna
these
be
be
with
the
that person.
same people that be like, you don't communicate with me. I feel like you're not sharing, or that you're hiding something from me. Because when I did try to talk to you, you told me to shut up. That was TMI. That was too personal. So now I'm just gonna do what I want to do, and you gonna let me.
I've known Tina we've known each other most of all our lives, right? But it doesn't mean that I know everything about my wife, right? And so there are questions that needed to be asked, things that needed to be explored, right? What, how do you feel about this, right? If we can't agree on certain fundamental things, right, then my needs are not going to be met, and neither are yours going to be met. So that. And we got married very early, and I think people thought, oh, they just got married, but no, you have to be able to have those conversations. Sometimes we just take a walk, we talk about things, right? It ain't gonna always be things that we agree with. Maybe I'm more violent than you are in certain situations, right? Maybe things key me off, don't key you off, right? But at the end of the day, right, are we compatible? Do I feel that we're compatible? Do I feel that we can make this walk together? Because if that ever becomes an issue where you come in and you be like, no, I'm going to share y'all a quick story. I dated a girl when I was in high school. I didn't really date this girl. Somebody told me this girl liked me, and I was like, oh, okay. So I thought she looked pretty cute. She's pretty cute, right? She had 2 kids. And one, I didn't know this until that day, that she had lost a child. And so we sitting there and I'm talking to her, having a conversation. There's a bunch of people around. And this girl walks past. And I know this girl named Diana. She was in our class. The girl I'm trying to talk to jumped up, screamed at the top of her lungs, I know you be this, be that. You the one that killed my baby with your voodoo, this, and that, but that's okay. I saw the devil yesterday, and the devil told me he gonna get you back, you SOB, this, and that. Hold on. I'm sitting there with this girl, and I realized, nope, not dealing with you, right? Yep. And I walked away, right? And I was talking to my boys. They was like, I thought she said she liked you. I was like, she crazy, man. She's crazy. She jumped up and she completely lost it.
Okay, so the question is voodoo? I've seen some people ask that question. Is voodoo and all that stuff real?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The devil is real.
As a former practitioner of it, yes, it is.
It is real.
And people do it.
God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you
think that only God exists and only good exists and there's not balance in this world, then you are purposely and willfully being ignorant.
Well, you probably not a Christian anyway, because that's not part of your faith. That would make any sense.
Right.
You sitting up there saying, well, there is nothing that can happen to me. There's no such thing as demons and whatever. Then I would suggest that maybe you delve deeper into your faith and understand what you really going to church and
or you're a grown person who's 5 years old in mindset and thinking everything is a fairy tale.
But I heard people tell me that too. They was like, well, I've never seen it. Because I didn't see it, it doesn't exist. Well, you don't see dark matter, but it exists. The universe has a lot of things that exist that you don't see.
I ain't never seen Tokyo.
But it exists.
It exists.
Like some people in TikTok, like Australia doesn't exist. Australia is made up.
The bottom of the ocean is current right now. There's things laying down at the bottom of the ocean. There's things dying at the bottom of the ocean right now. We don't see it, but it exists. so it's in motion, right? It's going on.
Okay, so to the question I asked you earlier, Jesse, when you said in the last show, people got to control their horniness, but you did not give any like remedy, you didn't really say anything more than people got to control their horniness. I know you probably don't remember, it's been quite a while, but I just want to bring that to your attention so you can address it now.
Discipline. And discipline means understanding what it is that's going to put you in positions that's going to cause you to act on your horny. And what we don't like to do is walk away from stuff that's going to allow us to act on our horny. Horny is a feeling like anything else. It'll be there as long as you acknowledge it and stay in a position for that feeling to be. If you remove yourself from the position that makes you horny, eventually horny goes away. There's nothing mystical about it, nothing spiritually deep about it. You can't pray horny away. You can't fast horny away. You can't preach horny away. You can't praise and worship horny away. You have to discipline yourself so that you keep it under wraps. It is something that people think that you could pray it away, but don't understand that God put it in us. And he put it in us for a purpose. He's not going to remove from you something he put in you that's used for his purpose. He tells you learn how to control it so that you don't pervert it.
Yeah.
And that comes with discipline. If I know I can't go to a strip club, don't go to without getting on the mess. Go to a strip club. That's the easy thing in the world to do. Like we try to overcomplicate and over spiritualize stuff that's really basic common sense. If I'm an alcoholic, you know what I'm not supposed to do? Go to a bar. So
like a lot of women, that show I was talking about, women used to watch soap operas and get all hot and read them books and get all hot. And they like, I'm not gonna put the soap operas away. It's just getting good. I'm not gonna stop reading this book.
Then don't be mad when you act on your horny and wind up pregnant and left or whatever the case may be. Like it's that choice you're going to. Which one are you gonna choose? Am I gonna keep down the path of what my horny is gonna take me to, or am I gonna do my best to remove myself from it so that I don't deal with it? I know the Bible always talks about in the way of every temptation, he'll make a way of escape. Look, sometimes the way of escape is don't go.
Yeah,
it's not always in the midst of it, something's gonna happen. It is don't go. we have lost, especially in the church, and it bugs me to no end. We have lost the art of discipline, which is why we have no disciples. We have a bunch of Christians and no disciples. Jesus didn't say, "Go ye therefore and make Christians." Christian wasn't even a term while Jesus was around. Christian is a term, was really like nigga, is a term of assault, and was a term of it was a way to laugh at and mock people who believed in Christ, that we took the power back of and called ourselves that. Jesus said, "Go make disciples." The root word of disciple is discipline. If you can't discipline yourself and work to discipline yourself, you can't be a disciple. So if you
I want to address what Harding said. I want to address what Harding said. He said, if you pray it away and it's taken, it won't come back, because that is a thing as well. If you do pray it away, it won't come back.
But see, I think you
have to be careful what you ask for.
I think you're saying the same thing there, though. Look, you can pray and God can give you discipline to be able to deal with whatever you're going to deal with. It's what you praying for, right? And let's be honest here, because we're talking about it. If people were to teach their kids, were to raise their kids to understand the discipline of sex, we are in a society right now where kids are titillated with everything. They can get on their phones, on their tablets. They can see anything hid in the music, right? The music tell you, I'm going to turn you over, flip you up, do this, do all that. They can hear all of that. And so they're bombarded with this constant titillation. But the thing is, right?
There is no escape.
How do you make your way through that? If you walk outside without an umbrella and it's raining, you're going to get wet. So you understand, hey, I need an umbrella to cover myself. I need something that's going to help me get through this situation. Maybe I don't go outside like Jesse just said. Maybe I avoid the situation altogether. You have to use the sense of what it is. And we got to teach our kids that. I'll give you a story. I went to a house one time with a friend of mine. It was my freshman year in high school. My boy wanted me to go with him because he was trying to talk to this girl. Her father was a doctor. Her mother was a nurse. They had money, right? And so he was like, "Oh, man, it'll be cool, cool." So we go over there. We go down to the basement. He's watching a movie. I'm just the third person that's there, right? I'm just there to make him feel good because he didn't want to be in this rich house by himself, right? And so the girl, because down in a basement, they had a shower, which is very weird to me, a shower in their basement. Had a little thing covering the shower, but it was a standalone shower in the basement. Wasn't a bathroom, just a shower right there with a cover. And so I looked at the shower we got down there with the curtain. I was like, that's kind of weird. But I ain't say that. And so we watching this movie. Then my boy, he gets up. He's like, "Hey, she said I can go grab some food out of the refrigerator." So he goes upstairs. She walks off in the background over there. And I'm like, okay. She don't come back out. He comes downstairs. He like, where she go? I was like, I don't know. She went over there in the other room somewhere. I'm trying to act like I'm watching TV because I'm feeling a little bit out of place, right? This chick, he walks over there, walks out naked. Completely butt naked, nothing on her at all. And it was at this moment that I realized, this ain't the place I need to be, right? I'm a man. I'm going to get turned on if I see, especially as a teenager, a naked woman walk out, right? The opportunity was there, but as I teach my sons, right?
But you had some R. Kelly real life type
but
stuff.
just because I can, just because I can don't mean that I should, right? And I told my boy, I said, "Look," I said, "Man, I'm out here." He was like, "What?" I was like, "No, gotta go," right? Because here you got this white girl, right, doing this, and I don't want her parents coming up in here. My discipline was my mama didn't raise me that way. We weren't taught to be that way. I got all sisters. I got the hell out of there, right? But there are a lot of young men who are not taught that discipline, and they follow their nature, put it the nice way, than following their common sense. And right now, today, you can't be doing that, because what's going to wind up happening is you're going to get caught up in all of these different laws that they got out here. Because what happens when that girl feels scorned? And she says, "Hey, two dudes came over to my house and took advantage of me."
And that happens.
What do you have to say about that, right? How can you defend yourself? So you have to have the discipline and I heard Falonda say it earlier. You have to start thinking when something presents itself, Just because you can,
Mhm.
don't mean you should. Walk away, like Jesse said. Get out of there. Live to fight another day. Don't let your horniness, the hormones. I can say that now easy as an older man, but there are other people who can't because they've conditioned themselves to say, "Hey, if it's out." I've heard dudes say it. If she put it out there, I'm gonna take it.
And if
Okay.
nobody reads anything in that Bible, they should read the book of Proverbs because it talks about seeing these things and how to avoid it. Say, see it coming, walk across the street and turn in the opposite direction and go in that direction instead of getting caught up in it. But Jesse, you were saying?
I was just saying, I want to add this thing real quick, and then I promise I'll shut up because I know my wife won't say something. She got that look on her face. She itching. That takes knowing your spouse right there. The other thing for me is also we have to stop making sex this big holy grail thing,
Hey,
the end all be all.
just
Part
said
of the
that.
reason it's so hard to discipline yourself is because we make sex like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing, biggest thing ever. And so I have the chance to get it. I'm gonna take it. It's like blaming basketball analogy real quick, just to kind of almost parallel. It's like the people who got upset with Kevin Durant when he went from the Thunder to the Golden State Warriors. He got a shot at winning the championship, the holy grail of basketball that few other superstars get. Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, and a host of others went their entire Hall of Fame careers and never got a world championship, and they're judged because they never got a world championship.
Yep.
Kevin Durant says, oh my God, I got a chance to get it. All I have to do is hop on the bandwagon team. Bet I got you. If sex becomes this holy ground, oh my God, I got the chance to do it. I don't know when this opportunity like this may ever come up again. Let me go ahead and take it. If we stop putting that kind of stigma on sex and make sex like food, sex is something that the body needs, the body has to have, and absolutely feels wonderful. Food is something we need, we got to have, and you get the right food, it tastes delicious. But I ain't trying to eat it every day. I know how to discipline myself and fast. I know how to discipline myself and eat when it's time to eat.
There you go.
So I can learn how to discipline myself to have sex when it's time to have sex. And the body gives the same urges for hunger that it does for horny. It just, you stop putting that stigma on it, and you won't have people running out to try and do it and then do it badly at that.
And I would say, like seriously, I hate that whole you can pray it away. Can we stop using prayer like an ATM machine?
Yes, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
Like, be specific. Look, people don't realize that your words have power. So you say, God, take this lust and this desire from me, and then you end up impotent. You can't ever get it up again. But then you ask God for that. Don't be praying for stuff and you really don't understand it. Don't be throwing all these wild, vague ideas out there and not really understanding the constitute what you're saying. How about say, God, pray God, remove me from this situation right now. God, give me common sense and wisdom. Make a way of escape. I need a door. She laying here on top of me. I need a door. Let somebody else come in. Let this phone ring. Something. Say something. Give me an out in this. And at the same time, if it's going to be an issue with you, you know what turns you on. And if you don't, then I don't know why you having sex. You
Falonda,
know what turns you on, huh?
Answer Harding. What about saying test drive sex like a car?
Nicodemus. He's one of our members.
Oh, okay.
So here's the thing about test driving sex like a car. So you get up there, you take my very first fiance and that experience. Let me be honest with you. He's a real good dude. He's actually a pastor now. Real good dude, been married for a whole bunch of years. But because I test drove and I ain't like how it rode, I bypassed him.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate you, sir. I wouldn't have
so you do that.
She didn't say he had a choice in the matter.
I still take it. Thank you for thank you. Yes, Lord.
Thank you, Falonda.
Look, no, I wouldn't have gave him a second chance. If he came out like Lexington Steel right now, plopped it on the table, I'd be like, hard pass, dude. Hard pass. I still got a memory.
Oh, wow.
Hard
and
pass,
that's
dude.
true. That's true. A lasting memory.
Right. I'm like, but if we stop thinking about in terms of the short term quick fix of it and really think this thing through, it's a whole bunch of people out here. And I tell people, I was like, look, what you don't want me to be is be your baby mama. My daughter's biological father can tell you that. So you get to see Falonda, you get to see Elder, you get to see Queen, you get to see all of that. But what he had to endure was that bitch Falonda, excuse my language, because I was that chick to him. Oh, I tried every chance I got. I was like, no, because you broke a promise. I took your word as contractual verbal agreement. If I have this child, you would be in her life. Not that you would be with me, but you would be a father to her. You would give her positive male representation. I asked you to do one thing, not child support, not nothing. And because you reneged on our contractual verbal agreement, you get everything that's coming to you. And I meant that, and I did that.
It's a pain.
So when we start talking about these lustful desires, and I'm getting horny, so you get horny one time because you can have one. It took 2 minutes to conceive our daughter. 2 minutes. You lean into those lustful desires. Can you see her with you for the rest of the life? Because you could get a divorce without having kids, but have a kid and see if you ain't got to still be together. If you ain't still together in some sort of way, you in each other's lives until that child is old enough to say, I ain't got to see you two together no more. So you need to think about the repercussions for your actions. I know you hard and things want to happen. You ready to let's get it on. But what are the repercussions for your actions? And that alone, I'm not going to put myself, look, I love Method Man. If my husband right now told me I could get a hall pass, I would find a way.
Won't ever happen.
It will never happen, I know. But I will find a way to get to him. I had an opportunity for him to FaceTime me. And because I know me, I didn't even want to have them thoughts. I was like, hey, can you just send me a video? And I have the video on my phone of him like talking to me and everything. And that's all I need. Because if I'm not finna commit adultery because my flesh get weak. My flesh want that. I would never have him. He is a happily married man, but my flesh want that. So I'm not going to put myself in a position to be in a place where I let my flesh guide me into decision. I got to be responsible for the rest of my life because God ain't going to talk to me about Method Man. God going to talk to me about Falonda's behavior. He's not going to talk to my husband about my behavior. He going to talk to Falonda about my behavior. So you have to look at like all the time. It's not about those quick 2, 5, 30. And if you lucky couple of hours, it's not about all that. All the time, it's not about that. What are the repercussions for my actions? Can I live with this person for the rest of my life? Can I live with this person give me a disease? You okay with that? Because everybody said they clean. You got something? No, I ain't got nothing. We use a condom. Next thing you know, you got herpes.
Can I also
be realistic with yourself?
I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean to step on your toes.
No, go ahead.
To Nicodemus as well, his question or statement on what about test driving the car. Here's the problem I have with that analogy that people always drop. They always toss out. Let me speak from my experience. I only have ever test driven a car I intended to buy. So to try to parallel sex with test driving a car is not an accurate parallel. Because when people use that analogy, they're just talking about having sex with somebody they're in a relationship with and have never even had the thought process of marrying. I'm not, as a pastor, I'm not allowed to condone fornication as it is anyway. But beyond that, I only test drive stuff I'm looking to buy. And if you're not looking to deal with this person long term, what you trying to have sex with them for anyway? Part of that comes from here come the churchy spiritual in me. Here it come. I've been holding it in. Here it come. Here the problem with that. The problem with that comes in because what we don't recognize is in doing so we really don't trust God. We don't trust God to the extent that we to understand and know that whoever He allows to be brought into our life, whoever He brings into our life, has the potential and the ability to satisfy all of our needs
without test driving.
Without the test drive. If He bring me somebody that's supposed to be mine, we good. It's going. All I have to do is trust that God knows me better than I know me. But no, we don't trust God like that. So first we go after what our after the lust of our eyes or what we think we see and we like. Then we go after our lean to our own understanding of what we think we want. And then we say, well, let me make sure that everything in the bedroom works good. So let me go ahead and jump and try and have this sex and see if it's any good. And if it's any good, those three things are going to make for a great relationship, a great marriage. But what you're doing is you're only looking at the now and not looking at down the road. Falonda is let me tell you, Star Spangled Banner, Rockets, Red Glare. That's what I'm telling you.
But that was great because you guys could hear from God. Those are there's some people that they not hearing anything. They just going by what they feel, what they see, or whatever. Eddie, you want to chime in?
You know, I was no, I was just listening, and I was a couple of years ago when I was over in overseas, I started writing, and I didn't know what God had me writing for. And I remember uh, as I started to do more and more writing, and I found that I used to tell people I'm not a poet. I just write what God gives me. And when I was writing, there was a young lady on one of these sites. She came and she said, you know, you wrote something that really, really uh, identified me. And as you guys were talking, it reminded me of that, because the parts that people don't understand is that some people are locked in these situations and feeling that this is all. He was talking about test driving, and I had wrote this poem called "A Worthless Game." And the first, I'll never forget, and that's I'm bringing this up because this everything y'all said resounded with me, because God gave me those first couple of lines. He said, "In the bottleneck of my feelings, I know that this is wrong. It's a game of lust and control, and I know it, but I'm a fool that keeps playing along. Again and again, I offer myself in this horny, lustful, and painful game. And night after night, I lay here open, begging to be slain. My tears fall in rapture and then continue to fall from guilt as he stabs me with his dagger, and I quiver and cry when I feel the hilt. He afflicts me with his poison, and it churns and burns my soul. I feel filthy, sometimes shameful, and then now I'm broken, and I feel totally alone and unwhole. I have a myriad of problems. They allow his torture to control my world. He steals my blind devotion, and I am more his whore than his girl. I allow him to take my worth. He leaves me to wither in this neglected pain. My friends and family call me stupid, but every night the truth remains the same. He takes me to bed and breaks me. He roughly spreads my love apart. He creates a discoupage of lust as he cuts and coats my love like his filthy art. After every single submission, he gets dressed and he quickly leaves. He never inquires about my feelings. He never asks me about my needs. He leaves me just a few dollars. Then he gives me an empty kiss as he walks away. But still, every night I am left here feeling worthless, awaiting the next time he's going to come to play. And when God gave me that poem, I said, God, I'm not a woman. Why did you give me that? And when that young lady came to me and sent me that message, she said, I was in tears reading this because that's my life. And a lot of women, she said, I felt trapped with a dude for years, she said. And nobody could ever identify and put it out that way. And so I just thank God, because what we're talking about tonight is so important. It's so important that brothers on here, sisters on here who come back and watch this, because people are going through this. They're living through this. And the church, your social, your friends, you can't go to nobody. Some of y'all shut in because you're still worried about the pandemic. And you sitting here and you're thinking, nobody hears me. But I'm horny. I'm lustful. I'm watching television. I'm getting excited, right? But the church tell me I can't masturbate. It tells me I can't do this. I can't do that. So I feel trapped, right? So what am I supposed to do? So these conversations tonight, I was just sitting there thinking, as I was talking, that whole point just came back to my mind. And I was like, Lord, I understand why we teach on so many different levels. I appreciate every one of y'all on here, because I'm sure you understand how important it is. We were only going to go an hour and a half, but it's so important for people to understand this information. If we'd have got off an hour and a half, Nicodemus might not have been on there, right? Different people who need to hear this may not have caught that. So it's important that we talk about this. And it's just so sad. But then married couples need to talk about it openly so people can understand. Ain't no fault in you being married. Ain't nothing wrong with you enjoying your married life, right? Just know how to get to that level so that, and let us tell you kind of ways to avoid some of them pitfalls that we've been through, things we've seen, things we've had to live through, right? So that you can be smarter and make smarter decisions. I don't want to say too much. I'm sorry I read the whole point, but that was a
No,
heavy thing.
that was fitting, and that was a good poem, and it segues into like you were saying at the end just there. How do you coach your spouse into evolving with you?
You can't coach them into evolving with you. Here's the thing: you have to be open with communication, yes, and talk to them about your evolution. But I can't coach Falonda into evolving with me because one, her pace of evolution may not be my pace.
Mhm.
So what I have to do is I have to be open with her, and she has to be open with me about the things that are changing and things that are evolving, and have patience and grace enough, especially because she's my wife and I'm her husband. Have patience and grace enough in the turbulent time in between when I'm here and she's here and she can get up, or when she's here and I'm here and I can come up. Because since I married her, I have to also trust her enough to believe that when there's a gap, she's going to do whatever she can, as she can, to make up the gap in the time frame that she can do it in during her evolution.
Mhm.
But I can't expect her to evolve just because I've changed. That's not her job. Her job is to understand that I have changed. My job is to communicate there's been a change, and then we have to keep communicating in the difference. You can't coach it because that's another form of manipulation.
Mm.
I coach you up to try to do something you either can't do, or not able to do, or whatever the case may be, and that authorizes me to be angry when you don't do it. No, that's crazy.
And that happens a lot in relationships. Philonda?
Mhm. Um, Real quickly, um, I don't believe in coaching. There's a difference between coaching and motivating someone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you love a person, and this is where we have to go back to bare bones basics. If you love someone and you want what's best for them, getting to know them and understanding them what amount of motivation and support is needed so that they reach the goals that they have set. It was never my idea in the beginning to become a minister,
Mm.
but it's something I was called to,
Mhm.
not by my husband. Because my husband was like, if this is what you want to do, if you want, he didn't even, when we first started dating, it was me who asked him to go to his church.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, you ain't got to go just because I'm there. I was like, no, but I want to see what you look like in that social setting.
Mhm.
I want to get to know all of you.
Mhm.
And because I heard the call for myself, whether I liked it or not, because I wasn't too keen on it,
Mm-hmm.
whether I
And true.
liked it or not, when I heard the call, as much as I was afraid to walk in it because I felt unqualified, it was through his love and his kindness, his understanding, and allowing me. I may have not went at the pace that he wanted me to go at, but allowing me to move in it naturally and fluidly, how I felt led to do it,
Mm.
that I evolved into the title. And we have to realize that, look, manipulation in any form is witchcraft. When you subsede
Mm-hmm.
somebody else's
Will.
will,
Yep.
Mhm.
it's witchcraft. These ultimatums, these threats, these fake babies,
Talk
these
about it.
I'm pregnant, so now we got to get married, or I'm gonna have an abortion. All that's witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Mm.
supersede somebody else's own personal will for your for your gain,
Mm,
then you don't really love that person.
mm-hmm.
You shouldn't force a person to be anybody that they weren't already.
Oh, but they incorporating a system. I just
Right.
want to throw that out there.
But we really have to get away from that mentality. Even God's word says, with loving kindness I have
And I've
Have
drawn
I
drawn
thee.
drawn thee?
you better
If he
talk
wanted
about
us
it
to, we could
yourself.
all be puppets. If he wanted us to, but we not. We have the choice. This is why we shouldn't force people to try to do anything that we want them to do. If you want to be horrible in your marriage, be horrible in your marriage.
Well, see
And
what it
know that
Mm-hmm.
the
gets you.
consequences for that is alimony, child support, mental
Right?
trauma. You don't know what. Look, violate God's word and see what happens.
Amen.
Break a
Mm-hmm.
covenant agreement and see what happens. There are consequences for your actions.
Mm-hmm.
But if we do what we supposed to do, if I can love you, support you, speak, and I can, from y'all's length of y'all marriage, there had to be at some point that there was that, let me uplift you, let me support you in your endeavors,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of things nurtures the relationship. Not because you need to do this and you need to do that and da 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 da. Because if that's the case, buy a blow up doll. They make robots for this now. You
They do.
don't need me. But like Jesse told me when we first got together, I don't want you to be who I want you to be. I want you to be you, because it's you who I fell in love with.
That's right.
And the
That's true.
minute you feel like you start to turn into somebody that you're not, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like I told Eddie when we first started out with in the marriage, I was like, "Whew, this your doppelganger. I don't know what's going on."
If I could, real quick, Nicodemus, Jesse actually addressed that in, I think it was last week's message about the person who had, was it last week's message or last podcast,
Okay.
about the person in the Bible who had to pull out because if he didn't, he was
Mm-hmm.
going
Oh,
to in wrong
yeah, that
time
was '09,
impregnate
right?
somebody else. Yeah, he was going wrong. He was going to impregnate the person, and it wasn't. He did wasn't what he was called to do. That's a
That was
and
the
it
whole
last
was
different other
and it
podcast.
was
thing.
mentioned in the last time we were all together. So
Yeah,
I would
Mm-hmm.
definitely encourage you, Harding, to like, subscribe, you and everyone to like and subscribe and ring that bell so that you guys can be in on these conversations when it first happen, and you can see the other episodes that did go into the various things that we're only summing up in this episode, and the hierarchy of human needs charts that we talked about that can help people to understand, to fill those needs for yourselves and recognize it for yourselves. But that's a great point, Falonda. He did say, he did mention all of that in
Yes,
the
he
last
did.
time.
yeah. And Nicodemus, there's a difference between gaslighting someone and opening someone up to a reality.
Yeah.
We
Mm,
are the quick to put blinders on our own self about our lives and gives
Mm-hmm.
ourselves values and things that are not realistic. We are quick to do that. We will gaslight ourselves before anybody else gets a chance
That's a
because
fact.
we see one way in the mirror instead of seeing all of us. I think when you find a good spouse or you find your significant other, they are able to put a mirror up to things that we have never observed before.
Good
mm-hmm,
God, that's the truth. Sometimes I wish it wasn't, but it is the truth. She has done
It
it to me
is
so.
like your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
good, bad, or indifferent, should be able to say, "Hey," like I did with Jesse one time. He was preaching. He got fed up with the church. Church really got on his nerves, and the messages he was preaching had so much venom in them. And I pulled him to the side, and I'm like, "Honey, I understand that you are upset, but right now it's coming out in your messages. Let's deal with the issue at hand before you start preaching the word of God to people with that kind of venom in them." And he was like, "I ain't even see it like that." I was like, "You preached a great word, but because of your venom and disdain for the organization of church right now, for this organization, it's not coming across. God's word can't be heard because all I hear is the fire in your
mm-hmm.
voice against the organization in which you are serving in."
And that's a great point because I remember telling Eddie, because he, on his Thursday show, he gets really involved and deep into the racial tensions, especially during the Trump administration when he encountered it on a daily, sometime more often, several times throughout the day. And it was like really coming out in his verbiage in his shows. And it was like, uh-oh. And I kind of tug him, kind of give him a tug. And, sometimes men be so bullheaded into doing what it is they doing, they can't hear you tell them, that's a little too venomous. That's a little too hard. You coming a little too rough. You smooth them edges.
If men have a tendency when you're in a fight, when you're fighting and you feel like there is, rather it be a physical or proverbial fight, but there's a fight that once I'm engaged in that fight, I'm gonna fight it, right? I can't show it my underbelly. I'm gonna fight it. And because we deal with these things all the time, rather whatever it may be, we're gonna get into an argument. I don't like when one thing that always ticks me off is when my wife is talking to somebody, and my wife is educated, and she's talking to somebody, and as a man, I can hear her blowing her off. That makes me mad, and it infuriates me. And I often find it, not saying that black men don't do it too, but I often find it in white men when she's talking business or whatever. And my desire is that she never has to deal with that. But my man side of me says, let me talk to this dude, right? Because apparently he's thinking that he can say whatever.
By the time he gets on the phone, his voice is high. He is angry. He is like a dog that started the fight, but he just jumped into the middle of the fight. I'm like, you gotta
because at the end of the day, and she'll tell me, baby, but I have to let them understand. You're not just gonna talk to my wife any kind of way.
I know that's right.
And you're not going to. And so I think that as Christians, we need to understand that too. There's nothing wrong with a Christian man standing up and saying to somebody, "That's my wife." As my son laughs sometimes, I told a man one time, "You real emotional right now. You need to bring that down a little bit, right?" And the dude quite literally ran out of my house, right? Because you're real emotional. You're not gonna holler at the woman that I love and think I'm gonna be a man that's gonna sit here and just let you do it.
Now I'm gonna tell that. I'm tell that story. The man came to the house, and he was supposed to do a service for us.
This is his second time coming to the house.
And the very first time he came, he was like, "Oh, y'all live here by yourself? Y'all live here alone? Anybody else live with your mama? Y'all mama don't live with y'all? Y'all parents don't live with y'all?" I'm like, I'm a grown goddamn woman. You don't see all this gray in my hair? But anyway, I was like, no. But here's the service that you need to do. Then he started talking real crazy, real grandiose. And I was like, okay, no, that ain't what it's supposed to be because we've done all this already. And I told him XYZ, because I always research what I'm supposed to do and what's supposed to happen. So he was like, oh, and trying to, gaslight me on some BS, and I wasn't falling for it. So he got upset. So he began to holler. So my husband could hear him. I'm in the garage downstairs on the main level, and he's upstairs, and he's like, I can hear this man hollering at me all the way from where? So he gets himself together. Now he's disabled. He's a disabled veteran. So he was doing whatever disabled veterans do. So he comes down, hobble himself on down there.
I wasn't hobbling. I'm not broken. Tell the story right. Teddy came up. Actually, our son came up and got me.
I sent Teddy upstairs because that man was out of control.
And I was like, who was hollering? Because I thought he was out. I thought he was about bedroom.
I didn't want the neighbors to think that, the only black couple in this neighborhood sitting here in the garage having it out. It wasn't us. So I sent my son upstairs to go get my husband. And he comes downstairs and he's like, now I told that man, I said, listen, my husband is upstairs. I guess he thought I was lying. So I sent my son up there to get him. And then suddenly he comes down and he's red in the face and he's all angry now. And he's looking for an escape because now my husband's coming saying, Hey, first off, lower your voice. First off, why can I hear you all the way upstairs and I'm sure everybody outside can hear you too? Now, never once did he curse this man. But at the same time, that was, something new for him. But yeah, it did turn out that that man got very emotional,
He was
and
emotional to
I
begin
kept
with.
telling him, calm down. And he was like, "You're not gonna keep hollering." I kept telling both of them, "Y'all, yeah, this is a hostile environment. I didn't want the posse to come out here, roll through with the sheriff, and everybody start get because that we were in an era where when the police or the posse or whomever it is with guns show up, they just get to shooting, and a lot of people they don't even know who they shooting. They just start shooting everybody shoot, and a lot of times the only person they shooting is the black man.
Wasn't no hands put on that man. That man
I
understood.
would have.
I'm gonna tell you what that man understood. That man understood something that men understand. When I walked up in that garage, I told him, first off, you're gonna calm down, you're gonna stop screaming, right? And then when I told him you real emotional, you ain't gonna be hollering at my wife and my kids. When he looked at me, then he tried to explain to me what he wanted to do. I said, sir, my sons could have helped you. You are real emotional. You need to calm down. Once he heard that timbre in the voice and understood, hey, okay, you're not finna holler at me, he deflated. As Teddy says, he realized also he was in that garage with what 4 other black people who at any given time could have laid hands on him. So reality hit him real heavily. Oh, they not by themselves. And he took off. That man ran into my house, he had some booties on, took the booties off. I was like, hey man, where you going? I followed him. He's like, I got to get out of here, sir, because you get really, really loud and really. I was like, man, okay, get out of here. Whatever, you go. But he ran out here it looked like a Three Stooges movie. He'd have fell over if it was something right there. But all that's to say is, at the end of the day, there are things that's gonna set us off, right? That's gonna set us off, and it should. I'm gonna be really honest with you. It should. You should defend your woman. You should say, "Hey, man, you take that on somewhere," because a lot of dudes, a lot of y'all ain't gonna like to hear that. You cowards, right? You cowards. And you hollered at a woman because you've been allowed to holler at a woman at some point in your life, and you've conditioned, that's the Tina's word, condition yourself to think that's okay, that you can holler at somebody's woman. And like Mike Tyson just told that dude he put his hands on that airplane.
Man.
It has conditioned y'all to think you can get away with some things. But this right here will happen to you, right? God gave, look, I got in trouble with my mama because I said, God gave us 2 hands, 2 feet, and then y'all mean to tell me I can't choke nobody, punch nobody, and kick nobody? I don't think he designed me to not be able to not do those things.
Listen,
right?
Dog, one of my favorite scriptures is the kingdom of God suffereth violence, and the violent taketh by force. I put an addendum on it. I'm the most violent of the bunch. My Bible teaches me lay holy hands. It didn't say my hand had to be open or closed, and it didn't say how hard I needed to lay it. It just said lay holy hands. I anoint my hand and I hit you. It's still holy.
And that's why I don't understand why people think that because you believe in God that you're not supposed to lay your hands on nobody to defend
like you
yourself.
soft. Like you soft. I'm like, apparently you don't know your word.
Well, you ain't never read about David. You ain't never read about what David did in the Bible, because David wasn't like, oh well.
I am part Jesus, part Peter. Roll up on me and see which one you get.
Right. I live in a constant state of half hood and half holy. You make a decision which one you meet today.
That's because a lot of people have taken this whole thing, right, from the way religion has been taught in America to think that you're supposed to be soft, right?
Right.
No, that ain't the case. Look,
and they equate it to being submissive. You're supposed to be in a constant state of submission.
That ain't submission.
That's not. Look, Dr. King had guns in his house after they firebombed his house.
Come on.
And the only reason why they took them guns out of the house was because people told him different advisors told him that wouldn't look right. But he was ready for them to come back to his house and try to kill his family again.
Mm-hmm.
Let's understand. And the Deacons for Defense that nobody ever talks about in the civil rights movement, them brothers was bodyguards for Dr. King, SCLC, Snick, and all of them. And they carried guns. And they was church folks, right? So let's not lie about the whole thing that, oh, slap me and then I'll let you slap me again. Nah,
absolutely not.
So where you getting all that from?
So what you don't want me is to turn the other cheek, because I'm probably reaching behind my back.
Exactly. I'm coming
This is
back
what you
with
don't
something.
want.
I'm coming back with something.
You are
Right.
lucky if you get the first slap off. Let me tell you like that. I got reflexes. You lucky if you get that first slap off. I'm gonna break your arm. Play with
And
me.
if I'm
You
a
get it.
Christian, I got God behind me. God right there
Right.
with me or in front of me. So,
Mhm.
hey, you about to get a hurting that you really don't want to get.
You ain't
Right?
ready for this. You don't want the smoke.
Mhm.
Now, did the
Alright.
Bible say first natural, then spiritual?
Say again.
Did the Bible say first natural, then spiritual?
No, it's first spiritual then natural. But listen, sometimes the spiritual is much easier to deal with when the natural is knocked out.
Yep. And you could go and work with your spirit, right? Let God deal with you while you unconscious is laying there and
Like
coming to
Adam,
reality.
like Adam was to create Eve. He had to knock him
Right.
out.
Got to knock him out so we can do the spiritual work. Sometimes I need let me help discipline your flesh so you can hear God. And the
There you go.
discipline of your flesh is
I'm just trying
knocking
to
you
help
out.
you out.
Trying to help
I
you
just
out.
want to get you to heaven. That's all. Sometimes I need to present you to Jesus personally.
But a lot of old preachers be lying anyway, because you see a lot of them, they put them hands on you too. They be like, bruh, what you think them deacons was there to do a lot of times? The deacons is like a bouncer. Hey, get him out of here. They grab the dude and throw him on out. That's what it is, right? That's what it is. But a lot of people try to lie to us and tell us as Christians, we want to be able to understand them and feel them. Why? That's why. Hold on.
I do
Remember
understand.
when the people died, got killed at Mother Emanuel Church when Dylan Roof when they killed them people? The
Yeah.
thing that hurt me the most, and I understood it, but I did not like it, was when all them preachers got out there and started praying for the dude who had just killed all them black folks in there. I said, wait a minute. You need to stop before you did. You should have asked God for guidance, because what the message that you sending is that black folks gonna take your abuse, murder, and complicitness, and we gonna pray about it and say, God, you will fix it. Back in the day, that wasn't the case, right? When they came in to burn them black churches down, the preacher was out there in the front with his shotgun waiting on you to come out here and get them people. We are lying to ourselves. I talked about this one time on history. They had guns. Church folks had guns, right?
Still do that one church we went to, Pastor Vicky's church.
A friend
Still
of mine,
do.
a friend of mine asked in Ohio asked me to come preach for them. Group of white folks, but good people asked me to come preach for them. I went out there to go preach, and it was a concealed carry church, and they were all carrying. I'm in the pastor's
Open
office
carry.
having a conversation with him. They brought in a gun with 100 bullets as a present to him, and he said, "Well, I can't carry that right now. I have my pistol on me right now. So go ahead and put that in the car in my lockbox so that can't nobody get to it." And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I preach the wrong message, I may not make it out of here.
I'm clutching pearls. I'm just saying.
But people don't want to say that. But if you go look at the history of it, right, it's truthful. They had guns. They went to church with their guns. And if you really think about it, it really makes sense during the post pre-civil rights era, right? I don't know what's gonna happen up in here. If y'all remember when Dr. King them all got basically locked up in the church, they had to call the National Guard, right? The idea was back in the 40s, late 40s, early 50s, they start passing laws that black folks could not have guns on them in towns, right? And they could go hunt, but they couldn't have guns. They were trying to take your guns away from you. So when you stop seeing the guns in the churches or with the church members, and then when I was a kid, people say, "Well, you shouldn't have a gun. Why Christian folks gotta have a gun? The Lord is your weapon. The Lord is gonna battle for you." That is all true, right? But the fact of the matter is, I ain't read nothing in that Bible that tells me I ain't supposed to have no gun. Matter of fact, I tend to read sometimes in this Bible that people even was walking with Jesus, right? Somebody pulled a sword. Some people had weapons, right? Stones, other things, right? So don't tell me that people didn't use weapons and they didn't have things to protect themselves, because that's a lie. You're lying to yourself.
Harding has a point. Jesus told Peter not to live by the sword. He didn't tell him to take it away. Harding has a good point.
One of my favorite things is something Tyler Perry did in one of his plays. You can go back to it, old school play, Diary of a Mad Black Woman. And he's talking to Tamala Mann's character and the lady who got beat up by her husband. And she comes in And Tamla says, Medea, you don't know the Bible. She said, I know the Bible. You don't know the Bible. I know the Bible. I'm going to teach you something in the word. And she goes through and she starts teaching the scripture. And she's talking about peace. And the Bible says, peace, be still. Because you have to understand that Jesus is the creator of words, or God's the creator of words. And the beginning was the word was with God, the word was God. That means when Jesus spoke, because he was the word made flesh, he spoke in past, present, and future tense. So peace, be still. Peace also was still. Peace is still. Peace be still. Peace was still. Peace is still. Peace is made of steel. She pulled out her piece. That is one of my favorite portions, because you got to understand, I'm gonna carry one of my favorite scriptures dealing with that. Well, for folk who like, oh, well, we ain't supposed to do that. Is Eli talks about Elijah, the bald headed prophet, walking through the woods, and these young kids, about 3 or 4 kids, just started laughing at him because he was bald, laughing at him like kids do because he was bald. The Bible says he threw up his hands and basically said, Lord, get him. God sent a pack of she-bears to eat him, to eat all of them kids. If God will do that over some
Some
kids,
kids.
what will he commission me to do? Because he worked through me. What will he commission me to do
That's
to
what I'm
you
saying.
for
That's
messing
what I'm
with
saying.
my family?
That's what I'm saying. You better understand the power, right, that you have. And understand also that I'm not gonna sit here and pull away from you. You're gonna get what you're gonna get if you come messing with mine, right? That's just gonna be what it's gonna be. And then I'm gonna leave your spirit in God's hands, because obviously you have forsook your body. So it is up to God to get your spirit right, right? Because
I'm just trying to make the introduction personally.
yeah.
My home church had a motto. It was the motto of the church around Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. They said, "May I present Jesus to you." I just want to do it personally. You didn't want to meet him down on here on this earth, so let me go ahead and send your spirit to maybe have a better conversation, because your body don't want to listen. That's all we're trying. I'm just trying to save folk. That's all. Get folk to Jesus. Naturally, the traditional way or an untraditional way. I'm just trying to help.
You gonna get what you gonna get.
That's right. That's right.
Tita, you at your 3-hour mark, so
I know,
I
and
know
I'm
it
like,
quick.
I know, and I'm like, this conversation has really gone through, but I think that we touched on every open
I
topic
enjoyed it.
that we had last time. Everything that was open and on the floor. We started with Falonda, um, and I really enjoyed you, Falonda. So, and
Beautiful.
I really enjoyed you, Jesse, and I really enjoyed
My
you,
pleasure.
Eddie.
Sure you
This
did.
group right
Sure you
here
did.
is this
Minister
group.
Eddie.
This group right here is on fire, and I love the topics. The audience loves everybody up in here, and I ask the questions, but I know the answer. But I want to ask you because I don't never want to assume what you gonna say. So your
Awesome.
perspective is what I was looking for, and that's what I wanted to coach out of you. Uh, I like the pushback. I like the
People should push back.
I like the feedback, and I really enjoy everybody coming back again on this time. So I want to make sure everybody likes, subscribe, and ring the bell so you can see more of these conversations. Falonda, Jesse, y'all want to pitch your show?
Well, I'll let you go ahead and do it this time. I did last time.
You could catch us every 2 weeks at the Real Talk Podcast, where we do this and more. The next episode should be dropping this coming Tuesday, hopefully.
Probably something Sunday.
Cool.
Yeah, should be coming next Tuesday, but you can find us on all our social medias, all of your podcasting, all your Spotify's, Apple Pod, the whole 9 yards. You can catch us at The Real Talk with Jesse Jones.
And that's going to be
And
in the comments so
I'll
that you
drop
can
that
see it
link up in it
there.
because I think I still got it from the last time I dropped it for y'all up here. So
And if you like the pastor and you think he's funny and you really do want to hear more from him, you can find us every Saturday at 1 p.m. on the High Praise Ministries page. It's highpraiseministries.llc, and we are the one in Atlanta, Georgia. So you can find us on there. Join us for every Saturday at 1 o'clock for a powerful word that is realistic. We don't sugarcoat this for you because your soul is that much more valuable.
Amen.
yeah,
Amen.
cool.
And I want to make sure that Y'all make sure that y'all put that in the comments for anybody that can only see the comments. So y'all make sure that you put it in there on your own so that everybody knows it's coming from you. I can't see all the comments that's put into there. So, but I do like to go back and make sure that I hit those comments. I like to make sure that I say people's names like Harding. We're military, so a lot of times we do last name Nicodemus. It's not it's not like I'm trying to do it. It's just conditioning. So I would appreciate it if you guys were to go back and watch those shows about the hierarchy of human needs and recognize how to get the help you're looking for, both naturally and spiritually, because it applies to both. Falonda, Jesse, do you guys have a closing you would like to say?
Baby, I'll let you
That's
start.
on you, honey.
Now we gonna watch tennis.
I'll just do it the way I do it in service then. Know that I love you. I bless God for you. Right now, we're out of time, but not out of word. And until we meet again, I encourage you to grow in God's grace and abide in his love. God bless
All right, now that was a great commercial. Eddie, do you have something you want to say in closing?
No, I enjoyed the show. You know, initially, because 3 hours is a long time for me.
It
Which
is.
I must enjoy you all if I willing to sit here for 3 hours. No, no, no.
Right, my bottom is like, whoa, Jesus.
No, it's all good. I think we covered a lot of different things and a lot of things that people need to hear. It's very important. And I saw folks come in and out, and I'm sure people will watch the replay and they'll come in and out, make comments. Make comments if you come in later, wherever you watched it at. Come on, make a comment, and we will definitely. If you have a question for Jesse or Falonda, we'll make sure that they get that question right. Because
And
it's
hopefully
important.
this won't be our last time. So we're
No,
available.
no,
Yeah,
no.
this show, I want to make it a bit known. These shows, this After Five show was produced by request. I believe it was Regina, one of our listeners who was asking, "Oh, you got to do an After Five
Yeah,
show.
it
Y'all
has to
got to do
happen.
it." Yeah, so I just want to make sure it's well understood. A lot of people are asking. So when people make the request known, I do what I can to facilitate. So I want to make everybody comfortable. I want to make everyone aware. This is how this happens. You have to ask the questions. You got to put it out there. And that feedback that I'm getting, I implement it right away. Is that what you've
Mhm.
seen, Falonda?
Mm-hmm.
Right away. We
That's good.
get it going, get it in there. So I want to make sure everybody feels comfortable and we're nurturing mental health. We are nurturing a mental health because mental health is physical health and is wealth. So let's get it in with this mental and come back on Mondays at 5 o'clock CST time and see me comment. This is interactive. We will shout out your name and your comments and come back on Thursdays at what time, Eddie?
Oh, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm
I
on
think it's
Thursdays.
I
I'm
think
on
it's
Thursdays.
I think
Just
it's 5 o'clock
just
CST
just
time.
subscribe to the Edition Network, and you'll see when we pop on. I can't. The times have me all messed up right now.
And
Uh,
subscribing allows us to see your comments and see your feedback so we know what you're saying so we can get back to you and maybe even produce a show regarding that. And you never know, we might pull you in on the conversation and shoot you a link and say, hey, say your piece. Let's get this out here. Let's get some questions answered because it's a lot of people out here in this world that are having the same experiences that you are and need these answers. So come on and let's get better. Until
all right.
next time, rewind and repeat, pause it, play it again, fast forward it if you want to, slow it down wherever you need to, but get it in. All right. See you next time.